Hello everyone. If you are new to my channel, then consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do it, thanks. By the way, I also have a Luffy fan fiction channel. If you are interested, the link is in the description.
Naruto, The Game of Life by SeerKing. Uzumaki Naruto wakes up one day to find out that his life has been turned into a RPG game, thanks to his gamer ability. What should he do about this? Smarter Naruto. Naruto Uck's Harem.
Chapter 23. D-rank drudgery. The next day, Hokage's office, Hokage Tower, Konohagakure. Sometimes, I hate my life. Naruto growled out from the depths of his mind, one eyebrow twitching erratically. It wasn't the first time he'd had such thoughts, though it was the first time in a fair bit of time that he'd done so. The source for the young Jinchuriki's ire was currently floating lazily in front of his face, a screen of pale blue amidst a world of gray. Repeatable quest. D-rank drudgery. You are a rookie genin. Doing demeaning chores and acts of unskilled labor serve as both a means to pop any sense of ill-founded arrogance that might have formed on gaining your credentials as a child soldier and as a way for you to earn pocket money while giving your Jonin sensei an opportunity to assess and train you to the level that you can go on more difficult missions. Number of times completed overall. 0 number of times quest has been completed today, 0 halves. Selection of D-rank missions. Painting fences, _. Walking Inuzuka clan dogs, _, babysitting, _. Weeding a garden, _, high D rank, catch Tora the cat, _. High D rank, deliver messages to nearby village, _. Scroll down for more choices, quest rewards. Standard for all missions, 500 express. Painting fences. Plus 300 Ryo, plus 50 reputation with Konohagakure civilians. Walking Inuzuka dogs. Plus 500 Ryo, plus 150 reputation with Inuzuka clan, 5% chance to acquire beast taming skill scroll. Babysitting. Plus 300 Ryo, plus 50 reputation with Konohagakure civilians. Weeding a garden. Plus 300 Ryo, 50% chance to acquire horticulture skill scroll. Catch Tora. Plus 700 Ryo, plus 200 reputation with Konohagakure Shinobi Forces, Konohagakure Anbu, and Madame Shijimi, if caught without the entire team being scratched to a bloody mess. A x5 multiplier is applied to the reputation gained for Konohagakure Shinobi Forces, and Konohagakure Anbu. Deliver messages to nearby village. Plus 600 Ryo, scroll down for more choices. Naruto had been scrolling through the list of D ranks for what felt like the past 10 minutes, trying to find anything that seemed remotely interesting, only to be met with nothing but chores and grunt work. The sheer tedium of it all was already giving him a headache, and he hadn't even started on the actual missions. Seriously, how lazy were the civilians in this village that they had to pay actual shinobi to paint their fences, mow their grass, and tend their gardens? At least a few of them offered some halfway decent rewards, with the best being for the Walking Inuzuka Dogs quest. Taming an animal. That certainly sounded like something he could get behind. Horticulture sounded kind of meh, especially since he was pretty sure that Ino already had that skill at around level 30 or something. Still, he wouldn't say no if it was offered. As long as there wasn't some limit to the number of skills he could acquire, any skill was something worth acquiring in his books. Taking a moment to pull himself out of his ruminations, Naruto felt his eye twitch again as he took in his situation again. Everything he could see, from the old man, his teammates and sensei, the bits of furniture in the room, even the sky visible from the room's windows, had turned an odd sepia color, looking as if he was caught standing in some old drawing or picture. Worse, the world and everyone in it seemed to have frozen solid. No one else in the room had so much as twitched since the old man had reached for the pile of mission scrolls on his desk marked with a large D. Hell, there was a bird outside the window that seemed stuck in midair between wingbeats. While normally this kind of situation would have been far more intriguing, especially with the pranking opportunity it could present later on, but there was one major problem: Naruto couldn't move either. He was literally stuck in the same spot and position as he'd been when time seemingly froze, only able to move his eyes in order to scroll down the mission selection screen. That changed what could have been an interesting and rather useful ability into something far more annoying. His nose had been itching for the past 5 minutes, and if he couldn't scratch it soon, he was going to lose his fucking mind. So I'm guessing the world's going to stay like this until I select our D ranks for the day? Naruto grumbled between unmoving teeth. Asuma-sensei was relaxing to one side, while Ino and Sakura were flanking him. Better get to it then. Taking another look at the available missions, he quickly noticed that focusing on one brought up more details, including an estimated completion time for each, ranging from only taking a few minutes to several hours. He couldn't see any details on the high D-rank missions, only a message that they required at least 20 regular D ranks to be completed before they were unlocked. It was also waived if you had at least 1 full year of experience as a genin or were promoted to chunin. Why someone would still be performing D ranks when they were a chunin was beyond Naruto's comprehension at the moment, but he supposed someone had to take that option, since it was written there in blue and white. He also had to wonder why catching a cat was seen as such a big deal by the village's shinobi force. Letting out a breath and trying to focus around his itching nose, Naruto gave the list of mission a moment of serious considering. Painting fences would not only be a quick and easy way to start off with, plus it would give him the chance to test that little trick Iruka had told him about using his new, Suigun Suima no Jutsu. As for the other mission, he decided that walking the Inuzuka clan's dogs would be good for Sakura-chan's and Ino's physical conditioning if nothing else, plus it would give him a chance at a rare loot drop. As soon as he made his selections, color seemed to flood back into the world in an instant and time started to flow again. The sudden shift was actually pretty jarring and more than a bit freaky. Now then, let us see what missions we have for your first set. Gigi seemed to pick up mid-sentence as he picked up one scroll, opened it up and glanced at it. Ah. Haramura Nodoka-san needs her back garden's fence painted today. Also, Inuzuka Sume has asked for someone to help her clan walk some of their ninkin as well. The old cage had to use quite a bit of his years of experience to hide the smirk that wanted to emerge at the sight of the incredulous expressions on Ino and Sakura's faces. The sight of new genin being told to do what he knew very well were chores that civilians couldn't be bothered to do. Oh, there were the occasional requests by those too elderly and infirm to do maintenance that they could no longer handle themselves, but the majority of the low to mid D ranks barely qualified as handyman jobs. Naruto was unsurprised, which Sarutobi had expected. His friendship with the adopted daughter of the Higarashis had guaranteed that she would let him in on the reality of a fresh genin's career. The blonde boy subtly caught his eye and used Konoha sign language while his teammates were distracted. Bloodline activated. Unusual occurrence, we'll report later. So the gamer power had activated in a way Naruto hadn't expected? That would be interesting to hear about later. Subtly nodding, Sarutobi solemnly handed the scrolls to his son before Iruka-kun started the standard, "Be on your best behavior" lecture that all new genin received from their former chunin sensei before their first D rank. Traditions were important. Also their expressions were hilarious, not that he would ever admit it to them. Haramura Nodoka's back garden, Konohagakure no Sato. Their first client, Haramura Nodoka, was a lady just entering her 20s who looked like she had to be related to Sakura given her mane of bright pink hair. Although both denied any familial relations, especially Sakura, who was throwing envious and jealous looks at the older woman's impressively large bust. The white ankle-length dress didn't hide her figure by any stretch of would ordinarily do it myself, but I have to leave Konoha tomorrow to meet my partner in a nearby village. She apologized to the team as she led them to her fence. That means packing and setting the house to be unoccupied for a while, so I'm afraid I will be busy for most of the day. Partner? Ino asked curiously, her gossiping tendencies coming to the forefront. A boyfriend? Girlfriend. Nodoka corrected her with a smile. Miyanaga Sake. She's going to move in with me next month. This meeting we're having is just to discuss various matters that will happen as a result of her leaving her family. With that, she left them to it, having already bought the paint and brushes. Ino looked stunned. Wow. Didn't think a civilian would ever admit to being gay. The Yamanaka heiress said after a moment. Usually, they're pretty prudish. She's actually a retired kunoichi, Asuma corrected her. She was invalided out of the forces a couple of years ago due to a bad leg injury that the med nin couldn't heal. Can't tell because she's good at hiding her limp and she covers up her legs with long skirts and dresses to avoid showing the wound. Shame really, But if memory serves, Haramura-san was never that enthusiastic about the shinobi life. She seemed more relieved than anything when she was told that she needed to hang up her Hite 8. You know her, sensei? Sakura asked curiously. She's a friend of a friend, stated the Jonin absently, placing another cigarette to his lips. Enough taking. Let's get down to business. That fence won't paint itself. The fence painting was over far sooner than anyone anticipated, thanks to Naruto using the altered version of the Suigun Suima to slather the paint on the fence, with Ino and Sakura brushing it out smoothly in his wake. It also got him a reward. Congratulations! You have successfully altered a jutsu. Suigun Suima no Jutsu now has the option to be used on all liquids rather than just water if you use the bird hand sign in place of the boar hand sign. You earn 1000 express. As a result of altering a jutsu without it blowing up in your face, you earn the Jutsu Mechanic title. See the title page for more details. In addition, the jutsu synthesis system is unlocked. See the relevant page for details. Oh yes, he was definitely going to take a closer look into both his new title and system when he got a chance. Dog walking had been significantly less easy, at least as far as Sakura and Ino were concerned. While both were fit enough for shinobi life, if barely, the two lacked the raw leg and arm strength to keep the excited ninkin, who were noticeably stronger than normal dogs, from running around and dragging them along for the ride. In the end, Naruto was forced to form a pair of shadow clones to help his teammates keep their ninkin under control. That had actually impressed Inuzuka Sume, who'd slapped him on the back and told him that he should take the mission more often in the future. Benton's blessing had luckily kicked in after that, adding a copy of the beast taming skill scroll directly to his inventory. Stupid mutts, Sakura muttered belligerently as she massaged her palms, both of which were sporting red imprints from where the leashes had bit into them. Why couldn't I just use the Karada Kyoka no Jutsu to keep them under control again? Because you're still too green with that technique to exert the kind of control you'd need to keep from accidentally hurting the dogs. Asuma-sensei reminded her, an amused smirk crossing his lips. Give it a few more weeks of practice and some more chakra control exercises, and then you'll be able to use it a lot more freely without risking accidentally breaking something you shouldn't. Now that the missions were over, the four were headed toward Training Field 10 to start on their individual and team training. After turning the signed and completed mission scrolls into the Hokage and getting paid, they'd had lunch at Yakiniku Q before heading out for the training field at a sedate pace. So what's the plan for training today, sensei? Naruto asked curiously as they approached the field. Well, for you Naruto, we're going to focus on refining the ninjutsu you've already learned. You've got a pretty impressive collection already, now we just need to polish them to perfection. The bearded Jonin answered easily, before scratching at his chin thoughtfully. As for Ino and Sakura, I'm not sure just yet. We're definitely going to be working on improving their physical conditioning, but otherwise I don't have a lot of options right now. I'd like to give Sakura a couple Suidan ninjutsu so she can use the Suioki Bunshin properly, but I don't know any Suidan techniques myself that'd work for her. Ino also needs to learn more ninjutsu outside her clan techniques, but I don't know her elemental affinity, so I can't make any plans on that yet either. I'm working on correcting both these issues, but the red tape to get everything is a pain in the rear. What about genjutsu? Sakura is a genjutsu type, and Ino could probably make good use of them as well, Naruto offered as they entered the field proper. I'm not much of a genjutsu type, stated Asuma with a shrug of his shoulders. Always preferred the direct approach myself. I only know a single one, and it's a high C rank, something neither of the girls have the reserves for just yet. Good thing I've got you covered, Asuma-sensei. The blonde boy grinned before taking a pair of scrolls out of his pouch and tossing them to the Jonin. Huh. Genjutsu. Moya Moya, illusion technique. Hazy, and Genjutsu. Kasumi, illusion technique. Misty. He mused as he cracked first one and then the other open enough to read their titles. A D rank and a high D borderline C rank 1. Perfect. The girls can learn and swap these over. Thanks, Naruto, I owe you one for these. No problem, it's not like I can use either of them. Stupid chakra control, Naruto grumbled slightly under his breath, getting a chuckle from his teacher. So what do they do? Ino asked curiously, proving she'd been listening in on the two. Sakura also spared the two males a curious glance. Moya Moya and Kasumi are both supplementary genjutsu that obscure the target's ability to see, though using different effects. Asuma replied. Moya Moya blurs the target's surroundings and makes it seem as if they are sinking into quicksand, while Kasumi makes it seem as if the target is surrounded by a bank of mist that only lets them see vague outlines of people. Yuhi Kurenai, a friend of mine and a genjutsu specialist, that actually shares the same name, but it acts as a form of illusionary clone variant instead. Since Kurenai actually created her version herself and the one we've got was created first, it's likely she'll be forced to change its name when she hears about it. Neither sounds like something that would fool a ninja sensei, not for long anyway. Sakura pointed out, frowning slightly. These are D-rank techniques, Sakura. They're not really designed to beat other shinobi, at least not anyone who's at least a competent genin. Asuma agreed. But if you use it on someone with little to no training, like common bandits and mercs, or even other fresh genin, they'd work fine. Besides, a few seconds of distraction can be the difference between life and death in a fight. Anything that breaks a foe's concentration, even if it's for just long enough for them to concentrate and break an illusion, can be useful. Also, Sakura, you should speak to your father and see if has an E-rank Suiden ninjutsu called Suiden. Kasumi, water style. Mist. Or the more advanced, D-rank version Suiden. Kirigakure no Jutsu. Water style. Hidden in the mist technique. If you use either of those in combination with the genjutsu version of Kasumi, it'll make a very effective tactic. Of course, the target would be confused as to whether they were locked in a genjutsu even after doing a dispel that it would leave them open for an attack. Sakura realized, the pinkette's mind going through the ramification of the combo. Bout that tonight. Good. In the meantime, you get to try the Kasumi, and Ino you can work on the Moya Moya. Asuma directed as he tossed each scroll to its intended recipient. Naruto, make a shadow clone for each of them to practice on. It'll give you the advantage of experiencing both genjutsu without actually experiencing them. Because of the memory transfer thing, right? Naruto nodded and made the clone hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. In a puff of smoke, a pair of clones popped into existence, identical to the original Naruto in every way. Okay, you two, you're playing target dummy for Sakura-chan and Ino. The blonde ordered his copies. Ah man. This is gonna suck. Ignoring the grumbling of his clones, Naruto headed off to do his own practice, pondering which jutsu to work on first. He decided on the three closest to leveling up first, which meant Dangan, Kaden Shuriken, and Gansetsukan. They would benefit the most from it, and he would be lying if he said he wasn't curious to see what would happen when they were all maxed out. He'd only maxed out a single D-rank jutsu, Kaden Hotarubi, so he had no idea if the reason he got a mastery bonus for doing that was because fire wasn't one of his elements or because it really wasn't a powerful jutsu in the first place. Using the shadow clone jutsu, once again, he created 30 more clones and divided them into groups of 10, each of whom practiced a different jutsu, while he settled in to do what clones could not and started grinding his stats, doing push-ups, sit-ups and crunches to pass the time. I'm breaking a sweat just watching him, Sakura mumbled to Ino, who nodded in agreement. You'll be doing physical training as well, just so you know. Asuma noted to the pair before making a hurry up motion with his hand to get them to start training. It was 2 hours later when Asuma called a halt to training. Sakura and Ino were on the ground, exhausted both physically and mentally and out of chakra. Naruto was only sweating slightly from all of the exercise he'd been doing, which earned him looks of disbelief from his teammates. Seriously, what the heck is with you? It literally shouldn't be physically possible that you aren't even fazed by 2 hours of non-stop exercise. Ino said to Naruto once she no longer felt like a used dishcloth. Hey, don't ask me, I've always been like this, Naruto shot back, thinking of his obscenely high stamina stat. It's because of his chakra, Ino. Asuma offered. He's an Uzumaki, which means his chakra is exceptionally dense and powerful. Chakra naturally reinforces the body and helps speed up recuperation and healing, meaning that someone with powerful chakra will normally have above average stamina as long as they put in some elbow grease. That holds true with anyone with active chakra coils, from ninja to samurai. The more chakra you have, the better your natural health will be. Huh. Ino and Sakura said in unison. I think we made some good progress today. Asuma stated, looking around. Naruto, have you dismissed your clones yet? All the ones I was using to practice my ninjutsu, but I'm a bit hesitant to dispel the ones that Sakura-chan and Ino were using as guinea pigs. Naruto replied, looking quite pleased with himself. He managed to max out Gansetsukan, and was just half a level away from doing the same for Kaden Shuriken and Dangan as well. Something tells me that dispelling those two will not be good for my mental health. He finished, hiking a finger over his shoulder to indicate the two clones in question. Both were looking rather pale and they were twitching noticeably. Yeah, best to do those two one at a time. Agreed the Jonin, looking nervously at the twitchy clones. That kind of repeated genjutsu exposure can have some unpleasant after effects. Clones should mostly diffuse it, but releasing both at once wouldn't be pleasant. Give yourself a few minutes between each to recover. Right. Naruto agreed with a nod before dispelling the clone that Sakura had been practicing on. Suddenly he was bombarded with a phantom sensation of unease. Images of being surrounded in thick mist with only vague figures and shapes discernible around him. The images stopped a second later, though the sense of unease remained for a few minutes, along with a minor headache. Then a new set of screens popped up in front of his nose. As a result of exposure to multiple weak area of effect site interfering genjutsu in a short period of time, the skill, minor ocular genjutsu resistance, blur, has been created. Due to the number of times you or your shadow clone was exposed to it in such a short period of time, the skill starts at level 2. Minor ocular genjutsu resistance. Blur, passive, LV2, 0%. A vast majority of genjutsu work by primarily targeting a victim's sense of sight and distorting it with various effects. Sometimes, this involves making the target unable to see via blurring their surroundings. This skill improves your ability to resist the effects of such an illusion while under it, but does nothing to prevent you from being influenced by it in the first place. Increases chances of seeing through a blur-type genjutsu by 2%. Ow! Naruto droned dully, massaging the bridge of his nose. Geez, Sakura-chan, just how many times did you cast that genjutsu on my clone? Its memories are full of nothing but being surrounded by that creepy mist. That's what it was there for, Naruto. The pinkette huffed in annoyance. Yeah, but you could have given it a break instead of casting the damned jutsu on it as soon as it faded. Naruto rubbed his head, wishing there was a headache resistance skill of some kind. Kid's got a fair point, Sakura. Asuma agreed. Remember that your teammate is helping you with this of his own free will, so show him some mercy next time. Yes, sensei. Agreed Sakura, blushing slightly. On releasing Ino's clone, Naruto was again assaulted with a phantom ill feeling, this time accompanied by flashes of himself sinking into the ground as everything around him started to blur together. Luckily there was no headache with this one, though he did get another skill alert. As a result of being subjected to numerous uses of a balance-disturbing genjutsu in a short period of time, the skill, imbalance correction, has been created. Due to the number of times you or your shadow clone was exposed to it in such a short period of time, the skill starts at level 2. Imbalance correction. Passive, LV2, 0%. The balance of a human, in motion or stationary, comes from many factors, including their height relative to sea level, the amount of oxygen available, the footing they possess and other physiological and geographic factors. This skill grants the user the ability to automatically correct for small amounts of imbalance when their sense of balance is negatively affected. Grants a 2% correction when the user's balance is negatively affected. As they departed, Naruto made a quick excuse about having to see Ruka-sensei about something, before heading off on his own and making his way toward the Hokage's tower. As he approached, he was greeted with the sight of Team 7 leaving the tower. All three covered in scratches and looking particularly disheveled and unamused. Naruto merely raised a bemused eyebrow, wondering what the heck had caused that. Hey, Gigi, what's with Sasuke's lot? They look like they lost a fight with an angry, thorny bush. He called as he sauntered into the office of his surrogate grandfather. They were assigned the Tora retrieval mission today. Sarutobi replied in amusement. Tora runs away from her master every other day, making it a regular mission on the Konoha roster. Quite an infamous one as well, as Tora is fast, cunning and fights like a devil rather than get caught. Nowadays, the mission is seen as a bit of a rite of passage or test for young genin teens. Naruto's sweat dropped at the sheer desperation implied by the tactics used by the cat. She must really hate her owner. Madame Shijimi is a lovely woman, to be a bit overly affectionate with Tora. The Hokage offered delicately, not wanting to insult an important patron. Anyway, is this about? The boy nodded, making the Hokage quickly activate the rune's security seals before motioning for Naruto to explain. Your power stopped time and let you select the missions that you undertook today? Sarutobi whistled as the young genin finished recounting the events of this morning. That seems to be quite the power you have there. Do you believe it will activate every time that you come here for a mission? I think so. Naruto replied with a shrug. No way of being certain other than by coming back tomorrow. At least the mission rewards are pretty good. I got a new skill scroll from the dog walking mission, beast taming. Have you looked into it yet? The professor asked curiously. Honestly, Naruto's unique ability was an intriguing mystery, and it was one that Hiruzen was honestly enjoying helping the boy piece together. Yeah, I gave it a quick look over when we were heading to lunch. Naruto nodded. It can actually be used one of two ways. I can either learn the beast taming skill and then specialize once I reach level 10 in it, or I can use the scroll on an injured animal. Learn the beast taming skill then, and specialize from level 1, which I think is the better way to do it. It does sound more efficient. The Hokage agreed. Think carefully before you use it, Naruto-kun. An animal companion can affect you much like the Ninken of the Inuzuka or the Kakaichu of the Aburame do. I'll do that, Gigi. Naruto nodded. So, you aren't mad about me interfering with your selection of missions? You had very little option in the matter but to choose for me, Naruto-kun. Sarutobi reassured the worried boy, waving a hand absently. I lay no blame on you whatsoever. Promise me that you'll take different missions every day and we'll leave it at that. Thanks, the boy said in relief before something occurred to him. Hey, if the Tora mission is a high D rank, why was Team 7 able to take it? I can't take it until I've gotten 20 ordinary D ranks done. That is normally the case, but Kakashi was the one to specifically request that particular mission as opposed to the genin. The Hokage explained. He felt that the challenge of a difficult mission would drive it into the heads of those three that they need to work on teamwork as well as honing their individual skills. As an acting Jonin sensei, he can override certain requirements on D ranks as needed to help ensure the growth and development of his genin, so long as he can offer a proper explanation and doesn't break any major law. Huh. Naruto blinked. Cool. Well, I'd better head back so I can deal with any problems at the Amikage apartments. You dealt with the only problem to occur so far very well, so the Anbu tell me. Sarutobi complimented him. Kiba-kun needed a reminder that rank in the shinobi forces isn't the only reason for him to bow to those outside the Inuzuka clan, something which he provided rather nicely. Hee. Naruto rubbed the back of his head bashfully. Oh, that reminds me, Gigi. What can you tell me about the Kimono clan? Not blinking at the sudden topic change in subject, since even before his new ability appeared Naruto was prone to jumping between subjects at the drop of a hat. The Sandaime organized his thoughts for a moment before answering. The Kimono clan joined Konoha about 10 years or so after Uchiha Madara was slain by the Shodem Hokage at the Valley of the End. They were an unusual clan in that, while the clan itself was made up of several interlinked families, the families themselves were not actually blood-related. They were nin taijutsu specialists, utilizing ninjutsu similar to the Inuzuka clan's Giju Ninpo, beast imitation ninja art, and Jujin taijutsu, beast human taijutsu, but developed a variety of techniques based on many different creatures, with a primary focus on mammals. They were never one of the larger clans in the villages. At its strongest there was only around 100 members in total, and they simply vanished from Konoha in the year following the end of the Second Great Ninja War, leaving no trace of their destination or reason for leaving Konoha. Why the sudden interest in obscure clan history, Naruto-kun? I've gotten my hands on 3 Kimono clan jutsu thanks to my gamer powers, Gigi. I can't learn one of them because I need to level 1 specific jutsu, the Kitsunrisu no Binsho. and at least one other Kimono clan jutsu to level 20 before I can unlock it. Naruto explained. The Kitsunrisu no Binsho is kinda like the Inuzuka's Shikyaku no Jutsu, except it focuses on improving my agility and dexterity rather than my physical power. The only other jutsu of the Kimono clan I've learned is the Sai no Kawa, which lowers dexterity in favor of making my skin as tough as a rhino's hide, which makes it kinda awkward when I try to use them together in combat. Yes. If I remember correctly, the Kitsunrisu was a low chunin jutsu while the Sai no Kawa was a genin. Sarutobi mused thoughtfully. You learned them out of order, and I can see where that would cause some issues in mastering using them in concert. Normally one would learn the Sai no Kawa while still in the academy and practice it until they were as familiar with it as a normal shinobi is with the Academy 3 or Traveling 10. Then once, after graduating, they would learn the Kitsunrisu no Binsho to combine the enhanced speed and agility with the enhanced defense of the Sai no Kawa to create a dangerous combination. I'd recommend focusing on training the Sai no Kawa first before trying to combine the two. Once you have a decent level of control over it, combining the two should be far easier. The old cage paused for a moment. You know, I recall that the entire clan compound of the Kimono clan was left untouched after they left. I locked it up and activated the boundary seals to prevent any jutsu theft until I clarified their status. Wasn't the end of the Second War over 30 years ago by now? Naruto asked with a sweat drop. Yes, but we still have found no evidence surrounding the kimono's mysterious disappearance, so their status is still listed as missing, unknown cause, in the records. The Hokage said with a crafty smirk. I think I can give you the key to the seals so you can explore the compound. Once you've managed to learn all 3 of the kimono techniques you've acquired and your team has completed 2 high D ranks. Naruto blinked as a window popped up. Quest alert. D rank drudgery. With a purpose, the Sandaime Hokage has promised to give you the seal key to the former Kimono clan compound upon your team's completion of 2 high D ranks. This also means slogging through 40 regular D ranks, 20 per high ranked mission, in order to be allowed to take those 2 higher ranked missions, but hang in there. Quest Objective 1. Complete 2 high D ranked missions, 0 halves completed. Quest Objective 2. Complete 40 D ranked missions, 02 40 completed. Quest Objective 3. Learn the Rogaken Jutsu. Quest Reward 1. Plus 300 Ryo, Random Kimono Clan Jutsu Scroll. Quest Reward 2. Plus 500 Relationship with Konohagakure Shinobi Forces, Random Rare Elemental Jutsu Scroll, Random Rare Equipment. Quest Reward 3. Plus 300 Ryo, Random Rare Non-Elemental Jutsu Scroll, plus 3000 XP, Kimono Clan Compound Key, permission to enter Kimono Clan Compound. Do you choose to accept this quest? Why? Wonder why there's no failure consequences in that one? The boy mused as he tapped the Y button in accepting the quest. Likely because there is little to no chance of you actually failing it. Sarutobi remarked. D ranks are a matter of daily fact for a genin, and even some chunin, so unless you die or become a nuke nin, it will be nearly impossible for you to not complete this quest. Point taken. Naruto nodded. Welp, I'd better be going. Later, Gigi. Smiling, Sarutobi deactivated the security measures on HI goodbye to his surrogate grandson for the day. He wondered idly how long it would take Naruto to get restless at the relatively low amount of experience points that D ranks apparently gave him compared to his usual sojourns into Training Ground 13. The old cage gave it 3 more days at most before Naruto got impatient and went to his old stomping grounds to get stronger. Not that the idea lacked merit by any means. Naruto was practically an expert at clearing through the chakra mutations already, and he had already completely purified the first 2 sub-areas of the excessive chakra for the moment. Still, he was in a team now, so he should learn to work together with his teammates in a combat situation, so that should be something of a focus for him. Sarutobi made a mental note to suggest to Asuma that one of his training sessions should be blooding Ino and Sakura on chakra mutations. If his gamer power works like I think it does, it may also reveal a clue as to what happened to the Kimono clan all those years ago. The old Hokage mused as he returned to his paperwork. That mystery still bothered the old cage, and giving Naruto access to the clan compound was a small price to it. Besides, if Naruto did manage to learn all 3 of the techniques he'd acquired, then he'd be automatically accepted as an honorary member of the clan per Kimono clan law. With the clan only loosely linked by blood ties, they had developed that law to help bring in new blood and tie their clan together through more legal means. Normally this was done through an adoption process, with the adoptee being taught the kimono techniques by a senior member while being inducted into the clan, but Naruto's circumstances were rather unique. I do hope that Naruto-kun tells me what he finds when it does happen. Sarutobi thought tiredly as he went back to his paperwork. 3 days later Sarutobi truly understood how his surrogate grandson's mind worked. His predications regarding the young Jinchuriki's patience, or lack thereof, proving correct down to a T. Naruto had gotten sick of watching his express gauge tick up 1% at a time with those dinky D ranks. True, he was making some headway with his jutsu, having maxed out not only Gansetsukan, but Kaden Shuriken and Dangan as well as gaining several levels on the Sai no Kawa technique. Doden. Gansetsukan no Jutsu. Active, LVMAX. The Earth Style. Rock Section Kane Jutsu is a fairly simple technique. After making the correct hand signs, the user should pick up a stone or rock, which transforms into a 1.5 meter long staff, which can be used in close combat or thrown at the enemy. At high levels, the user can create multiple staves simultaneously and assail their enemies with them. Hand signs. Monkey rat snake number of staves created per use, 1 to 50. Durability of each stave, 100 mastery bonus. 50% chance per use of doubling number of staves created when creating more than one stave. Futon. Kaden Shuriken no Jutsu, active, LVMAX. The Wind Style. Rotating Shuriken Jutsu is a useful jutsu for increasing the effectiveness of your Shuriken Jutsu. By infusing a shuriken with wind-natured chakra, you increase its cutting power. Once a shuriken has been infused, you can manipulate the shuriken to attack your enemies remotely. Requires shuriken to use. Actively increases the damage of any infused bladed weapon by 50 plus 5%. Actively allows you to control the infused weapon up to 60 meters away. Added effect. Blades of Lesser Wind. Once a shuriken strikes its target, they will unleash 2 to 3 blades of wind into the target, causing 20 to 25 plus 5% per blade, and each has a high chance for a critical hit. Hand signs. None. Number of weapons that can be infused and manipulated, 15. Costs 10 CP per weapon, 2 CP per minute to maintain. Futon affinity and chakra control cost reductions taken into account. Mastery bonus. Chakra cost is reduced to the above seen values. Doden. Dangan no Jutsu. Active, LVMAX, by slamming their hand or foot on the ground after completing the hand signs, the user can send a large boulder or menhir at the opponent. As this jutsu only requires 2 hand signs, it can be performed quickly. The drawback of this jutsu is that it is relatively short-ranged and lacks speed when moving through the air, although this is improved at higher levels. Launches a boulder or a menhir at your opponent up to 10 meters away, causing 150 points of damage, plus an additional 20 points per every level of secondary Doden affinity that you possess, max 10 levels. The difference between a boulder and a menhir is purely cosmetic and entirely up to the user's preferences. Hand signs. Horse Monkey costs 60 CP per use. Mastery bonus. Enemies targeted by this jutsu will be inflicted with 2 seconds of paralysis while it is in flight. The mastery bonuses were all over the place, but that just made it interesting. They were just high D rank, low C rank jutsu, so they weren't all that powerful compared to some jutsu. The mastery bonuses simply made them a bit more effective or easier to use. Still, it made his arsenal that much stronger. He'd changed into a fresh set of his light combat clothes after getting back to his apartment post-team training, and he was about halfway to TG-13 when Asuma-sensei appeared next to him in a burst of smoke. Doing some self-training? The Jonin asked casually as he fell into step beside his student. Considering the express from the D ranks is barely a drop of broth in the ramen bowl, one kinda need to if I'm gonna level up. Naruto replied evenly. It isn't as if I haven't been doing this for a year or anything. He's expecting me to try and convince him to stop, Asuma easily deduced. I have no issues with you going to TG-13. Asuma responded with a grin, causing his headstrong genin to relax slightly before he continued. But you are part of a team now, kid. You need to learn how to fight alongside each other. So I'd like you to at least invite your teammates along on your little hunting trips in future. Would Sakura-chan and Ino even want to learn how to fight these things? The blonde boy responded dubiously. Back when I was an academy student, it was a requirement that you had to fight and kill at least one chakra mutation during your final year at the academy. Asuma informed him simply. You either proved you had the stones for it or you automatically failed the graduation exam. Pops was not happy when he heard that idiot had it removed from the curriculum for being too harsh. I'll bet. Naruto snorted. Ten-chan said she hadn't done that either. She killed her first mutation in there with me. Higurashi Tenten, right? Asuma questioned, snorting when the team nodded. Of course, she's one of Guy's students, and that man would never condone harming innocent creatures as part of a training exercise. When he noticed Naruto's curious look, he elaborated. Maeda Guy is one of Konoha's elite jonin and acknowledged as one of, if not the best, taijutsu master in Konoha. He's also a bit of animal lover. He hated the idea of having to kill a harmless creature as part of a graduation requirement even back when we were in the academy. Of course, he never hesitated to kill one if it went on a rampage or had killed, injured someone, but he never went out of his way to kill one that was just minding its own business unless it was a mission. Never mind that most chakra mutations attacked any human with active chakra coils as soon as the beast sensed them. He considers flesh-eating squirrels and boulder-sized moles harmless. Naruto responded incredulously. Depends on your definition of harmless. Asuma replied with a smirk. Even back then, Guy was a physical monster. The kind of guy who could lift and juggle boulders as part of his daily exercise routine. Compared to someone like that, most normal mutations would look pretty harmless. Naruto could only sweat drop at that. Yeah, compared to a monster that, even the boss monsters he'd encountered sounded fairly harmless. Anyway, all I ask is them the option. The Jonin said calmly. Besides, it's always a good idea to have backup, especially since I can't risk going in there except for a brief period thanks to that gang of idiots you dealt with. Stupid spandex brigade. Naruto grumbled. Alright, I agree sensei, but only after they learn at least a couple offensive ninjutsu. The training grounds are not easy, even the ones I've already cleared have issues. Remnants of chakra from deeper in the training grounds leak in and possess the trees, turning them into possessed Mokujin. Normal kunai and shuriken are pretty much useless against those things. Hey, alright kid. Asuma nodded. Naruto made a fair point about the dangers the girls would face in the training grounds, so he supposed they could wait a bit. Sakura's already making good progress with genjutsu, Moya Moya, and the Sweden Kasumi scroll she got from her father. Ino's also making good progress with genjutsu. Kasumi. Once they've gotten both genjutsu mastered to an acceptable level, I should have gotten my hands on some entry-level ninjutsu scrolls suitable for them both. Should have them both combat ready in a month or so. Sakura-chan said that her dad was gonna give her a genjutsu to work on as well. Dunno what it's called though. The boy mentioned as the fence of Training Ground 13 came into sight. Haruno Kazashi was well known for his prowess with one genjutsu in particular, even though he never got above genin rank during his career. Asuma said thoughtfully. Sweden genjutsu. Suigetsu Shinkiro, water-style genjutsu. Watermoon Mirage. Rather than using chakra to infiltrate the senses of an opponent, it manipulates the water particles in the air to refract light and create illusions to deceive and trick the enemy. If he teaches her that, well, she's going to be scary for other ninja to face. Brr. A genjutsu that can't be dispelled through a release or by inflicting pain on yourself. Why did Sakura-chan's dad never get promoted again? Naruto shivered at the thought of being on the receiving end of that jutsu. Honestly, sheer bad luck. Before he retired, he was as good as any chunin, but he always had issues when it came to the exams. He was injured right before a couple of exams and was unable to enter. Then, when he actually got a chance to enter, he failed because of an accident in the second round injuring one of his teammates, and he was forced to withdraw before the third round after being poisoned during another. Asuma answered. He retired soon after when he married Mebuki and had Sakura-chan. But most of his old comrades still remember him with respect for his years of service. Some people just don't have any luck. The boy muttered before shaking his head. Well, I'm heading in, sensei. Take care, Naruto. Asuma nodded, chuckling as the boy trotted off to enter the training field. He's gonna be an interesting one to train. Now then, I guess I'd better go and wade through more red tape to get those affinity testing papers and basic jutsu scrolls. Knew I shouldn't have brushed Oyaji off when he offered to streamline things for me. Stupid pride. Sighing, the bearded Jonin headed off, leaving his student to once more hunt down possessed blocks of wood. Chapter 24. Shish, we're hunting wabbits. Inside TG-13, status, Naruto stated aloud as he started making his way through the overgrown training ground. Name: Uzumaki Naruto. Class: The Gamer, plus, level 17, next level, 86.01%. Title: Genin, plus 15% expressed to LV25, plus, age: 12 HP, 4108 4108. CP: 4061 4061 STR, 43 STA, 46, plus 10, Dex, 45 INT, 41, plus 5. WIS, 37 LUK. Having been unable to advance his level since he'd beaten Mizuki, Naruto was more than a little eager to finally get some serious grinding done. Particularly since he wouldn't be able to use his new sword, Kogetsu Kyushiki, until he was level 20. Having such a badass weapon literally at his fingertips and not being able to actually use it for anything sucked. It sucked hard. On the bright side, he was finally going to be able to get some practical use out of his twin Tanto, Sumair and Tsubaki, so that was good. He hadn't been able to use either of them for more than a bit of practice since he'd finally reached a level where he could actually equip them, aside from a little against Mizuki. That reminds me, I still haven't gotten a chance to hit the shinobi library, dang it. Naruto mentally hissed in irritation. With everything that had been happening since he'd officially graduated and became a full-fledged genin, team meetings and training, dealing with issues as everyone settled into the apartments, D-ranks, and he'd honestly hadn't thought about it until now. Iruka-sensei had likewise been incredibly busy with his new position since he'd been made the Hokage's assistant when dealing with the new genin teams, so he hadn't been able to help. And he hadn't even thought of bringing it up to Asuma-sensei. So he was stuck with his self-taught Nitoryu Tanto skill for the time being. Grumbling in annoyance at himself and his stupid busy schedule, Naruto advanced further into Training Ground 13's first sub-area, drawing both his weapons as he did so. Something that he was definitely going to be working on tonight was creating some actual combat techniques outside his jutsu. He had exactly one technique for using with his Tanto, and maybe another one or two when relying on taijutsu. Granted, having a lot of techniques weren't exactly necessary for fighting like a ninja, but they usually had some good bonuses and special effects, if Rising Knee was any indication. That and they just looked and sounded so much cooler than just attacking blandly. Since I haven't been here for over a week now, the level of saturation should have at least reached a level to spawn a few new monsters. Naruto muttered to himself as he looked around, keeping his voice quiet just in case there were Anbu hidden nearby, keeping an eye on the place after the missing Enin incident. Stalking through the trees, the gamer smirked as the world seemed to blur around him as a random battle was triggered. When things came back into focus, he was almost blinded by the sight of the enemy before him. As always, since he'd cleansed the first area, again, the enemy was a possessed Mokujin. However, this one was decidedly different from any of the ones he'd seen before. It stood somewhere between a regular, possessed Mokujin and the possessed Elder Mokujin in size, but its most defining feature was that its wooden form was shining like the entire thing was made from polished gold. Possessed Golden Mokujin LV20, Blessed Wood of the Forest. A screen appearing in front of him made Naruto blink, then deadpan at it. Rare enemy. Congratulations on facing your first rare enemy. These, as the name suggests, are enemies that appear with far less frequency than other monsters, and they typically possess equally rare and useful drop items. Of course, They are also quite a bit more powerful than regular monsters as well, which is why they are sometimes referred to as mini-bosses by various gamers. More risk, more reward. Good luck. Oh, just fuck you. Game. Naruto deadpanned under his breath before dodging out of the way of a punch from the Mokujin. Its movements were more fluid and human-like than its counterparts, not to mention quicker. Also, unlike before, rather than having a pair of hardened blocks at the end of its arms, this one had a pair of fully functional hands. Hands that were currently forming a set of hand signs. No freaking way. The boy blurted out in shock. In spite of the fact that a Mokujin wasn't a living creature, and therefore had no chakra network, the impossibility before him continued to break the standards of reality by speaking in a voice that sounded more like leaves rustling in the wind than anything comparable to a human voice. Mokuton. Kozuchi. Wood style. Wooden mallet. In one fluid movement the possessed dummy knelt onto the ground and slammed its hands into the dirt. Instantly several large lengths of wood, each about as long as Naruto's arm and ending in a spike-like point, shot out of the ground and tried to impale him. Naruto was forced to leap to the side, barely managing to avoid the spikes by the skin of his teeth. Rolling back to his feet, Naruto resisted the urge to stow his weapons and turned this into a straight ninjutsu fight. He'd already decided that he was going to fight and win with his Tanto, and that was what he was going to do. The pop-up a few seconds later made one eyebrow twitch. Quest alert. By the sword. You are facing a mini-boss class monster and you wish to defeat it without disarming yourself of your Tanto. Valiant, but foolish. The system will be impressed if you manage that. Quest objective. Defeat the possessed golden Mokujin without dropping your Tanto. Bonus objective. Invent a combat technique involving your Tanto before the end of the fight. Quest reward. Plus 1000 XP, Shikomizu, Mokuton Kekkei Genkei Journal, Volume 1. Plus 1000 Ryo. Bonus reward. Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu. Tanto Zanmai, Skill Scroll OR, Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu. Nisan Togen Kyo, Skill Scroll. Quest failure. Get killed by a tree. What an embarrassing end. Except, Y-N hitting the Y button with a hurried jab of an extended index finger. Naruto let a part of his mind ruminate on how snarky the window was before moving on to the rewards for the bonus objectives. Both techniques sounded pretty cool. He hoped that he'd at least get a look at what they could do before he was forced to choose. Mokuton. Moku Bunshin. Wood style. Wood clone. The Mokujin rustled, two clones seemingly sprouting from either side of its body. Now confronted with 5 powerful Mokujin, Naruto decided to take things seriously and activated his Futon Chakra Nagashi, coating both Tanto in flowing blades of wind. You wanna dance? Okay. Let's dance, the fresh genin growled out as he settled into a ready stance. As if on cue, the 5 monsters charged at him. Meeting the rush head-on, Naruto bit back a yelp as multiple wooden fists swung at, and barely missed, his head. He returned the favor with a whirling assault with both his Tanto blades, lopping off wooden limbs left and right. The wind chakra flowing through his blades made chopping through the wooden limbs way easier than he expected, but Naruto was moderately surprised when the damage didn't dispel any of the clones. Apparently, wood clones were pretty durable, who knew? Leaping back and out of the melee for the moment, forcing the 5 wooden monsters, 3 of which were missing an arm, to break apart before they could purse, Naruto thought furiously about how to complete the bonus objective on this mission. He could think of one trick that might work off the top of his head, but it seemed like more of a chakra flow technique than an actual Tanto technique. Still, wouldn't hurt to try it out. With his usual disregard for the consequences, Naruto brought his right hand Tanto up and cut the chakra flow to his left hand one altogether. Then he started pushing as much chakra down into his right hand Tanto blade as he thought it could handle safely. In an explosion of shrieking wind, the blade elongated and expanded until it was twice the height of Asuma Sensei and Aswoda. It was also really unstable, so he immediately swung it to attack the enemies charging at him. One of them kicked off another and flew back, the original presumably. The 4 remaining Mokujin clones were instantly bisected by Naruto's new technique, their golden coloring fading away as they reverted to regular wood. As the torsos and legs clattered to the ground, Naruto's new technique vanished as well. While it was cool, he was pretty damn sure that it was in no way a Tanto technique, so he had to come up with something else to get the bonus objective completed. Reigniting the wind blades around his weapons, Naruto launched himself forward and into the air as the cursed dummy started running through another set of hand signs. While still in midair, he brought back both blades over his right shoulder as he started to spin through the air as he descended. Before the Mokujin could finish the last of its seals, Naruto was directly over it, bringing both blades down and slashing through its arms and body in a single swing. As the arms and torso clattered to the ground, Naruto immediately leapt back, just in case of a trick or last-ditch attack technique. But the screen popping up made him relax. Congratulations! You have defeated a possessed golden Mokujin. You received 2000 Express. You have defeated X4 Moku Bunshin. You gain 100 Express. Congratulations! You have leveled up LV17 LV18. You have received 5 attribute points. As a result of a specific action, the skill, Futon Chakra Nagashi Danto, has been created. Futon Chakra Nagashi Danto. Active, LV1, 0%, Wind-styled chakra flow. Sever Sword is a jutsu which allows the user to greatly expand the length and width of the wind blades created using normal, Futon Chakra Nagashi. The larger the weapon being imbued, the larger the wind blade will become. This is an incredibly dangerous technique, with the ability, if well trained, to cut through diamond with ease. Surprisingly for a Futon jutsu, it was created in Kirigakure rather than Sanagakure, and named for a nickname of one of the 7 swords of the mist, Kabikirabocho. Requires an edged chakra metal weapon to be used as a medium. Only usable on a single weapon at a time. Creates an elongated blade around the weapon that extends the reach of the wind blade. The slashing damage of the weapon is 3x the amount of the regular Futon Chakra Nagashi jutsu. At present, the jutsu is unstable and will dissipate after a single swing. Costs 60 CP to activate and 40 CP per minute to maintain. As a result of a specific action, the skill, Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu Sagetsu Nagiri, has been created. Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu Sagetsu Nagiri Instant, LV1, 0%. Short Sword 2 Sword Style Sword Jutsu Double Moon, 2 Cuts, is a sword technique created by Uzumaki Naruto while wielding his Tanto, Sumaire and Tsubaki. It is a relatively simple technique that uses a slight amount of deception combined with momentum to deliver a pair of simultaneous cuts in close proximity to one another. This can result in the wounds being hard to stitch up in the absence of a med nen. Chakra cost. None. Requires 2 Tanto in order to use. Double slashing damage of weapons used in this attack. Each attack against a non-armored location increases the chance of inflicting bleeding on the target. Chakra Nagashi no Jutsu has gained a level, LV9 LV10. Chakra Nagashi no Jutsu has gained a level, LV10 LV11. Quest complete. By the sword. You have successfully managed to overpower a mini-boss with just your sword, and a spot of ninjutsu on the side. Well done. Quest reward. Plus 1000 XP, Shikomizu, Mokuton Kekkei Genkei Journal, Volume 1. Plus 1000 Ryo. Bonus reward. Press to choose your reward. Plus. Eagerly, Naruto pressed the button and was confronted by another screen, with 2 options. Jutsu selection. Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu. Tanto Zanmai, Short Sword 2 Sword Style Sword Jutsu. Short Sword Slash Dance is a low-level sword technique involving reinforcing the user's arms with chakra and unleashing multiple close-range slashes at high speed against the enemy. Against slower enemies, or when executed from a position of surprise, this technique can win a fight in an instant. Choose this jutsu, Y.N. Tanto Nitoryu Kenjutsu. Nisan Togen Kyo. Short Sword 2 Sword Style Sword Jutsu. 2 Flashblade Illusion Border is a mid-level sword technique that acts in a similar manner to Konoha Ryu. Yanagi, as practiced by the Eternal Genin, Maruboshi Kosuke. By waving the twin blades of their Tanto in specific motions and patterns, The user can hypnotize, confuse and befuddle their opponent until they are easily disposed of with a scissor motion cut. Choose this jutsu. YN. Warning. Accepting one jutsu will automatically decline the other. Choose wisely. Well. Damn. The blonde boy blinked. Both techniques sounded pretty awesome. The first was exactly up his street, and would probably complement the fighting style that he was building really well. The downside was the lack of variety that the technique offered, being more of the same when it came to combat. The second technique was definitely something that most people wouldn't associate with him, and it gave him access to something he never thought he'd be able to use, genjutsu. Not to mention widening his options in combat. On the other hand, he knew, very literally, jack all about genjutsu beyond his distaste for being used as a training dummy when Sakura and Ino were practicing the techniques he'd given them. Seriously, ow. Watching the world bend and warp around you, even through memory transfer, was not a fun experience. After a few moments of head scratching and muttering, Naruto eventually came to a decision. Reaching out, he selected the genjutsu that wasn't a genjutsu for the sole purpose of trying to add a bit more diversity to his style. He left the resulting scroll in his inventory for the moment, deciding to concentrate on reaching sub-area 3 for the moment and not wanting to get sidetracked with a new skill to play with. Opening up his status, he placed the 5 points he had gained into his whiz stat, bringing it into the same level as his int. Stopping to loot the corpses, Naruto blinked in surprise as he got a decent-looking bow staff from one of the Moku Bunshin, while the other 3 merely offered planks of wood. However, the really good loot came from the main body, which gave him several Mokuton altered oak seeds, which, if their descriptions were true, would grow to full size in a month and, when fully grown, would regenerate any limbs cut off from them in under 2 days. He'd have to give most of them to his Gigi. He'd know how to put those to better use than Naruto could. Moving through both the first and second sub-areas, Naruto quickly dispatched any other Mokujin as and when he came across them, none being rare monsters. Considering that, in the almost a year since he'd gained the gamer, he'd only come across one of them, that probably shouldn't be that much of a surprise. Okay, here's the entrance to the third area. Naruto stood in front of the gate and, out of reflex, checked his equipment. Not that he had much, but he made sure that his Tanto holsters were secure. He made a mental note to give his C-rank mission outfit a test run at some point, as it was heavier than his regular outfit and he needed to learn to fight with that additional weight. Pushing the gate open and stepping through, Naruto blinked as the trees instantly vanished, leaving a fairly large open field, but not so large that he couldn't cross it at a light jog in under 5 minutes. Also, his weapons were sheathed again, for some reason. There's absolutely nothing here. What the heck? The blonde genin said in surprise. Looking around, Naruto decided to canvass the meadow, which was basically what it was, for any sign of monsters and/or clues. The minimum level for this area wouldn't be 14 if it was just an empty clearing in the forest. After 10 minutes of frustrated searching, he finally found a hole in tay of a gently sloping hill to one side of the meadow. It was large enough for him to walk into without ducking, and he could spread his arms wide with his Tanto drawn and still not brush against the sides. I have a bad feeling, Naruto muttered as he eyed the hole. As a window popped up, he knew that his bad feeling had been vindicated. Congratulations! You have discovered the first regular dungeon in your life, the Wabbit's Warren. You receive 100 express for this feat. Wabbit? What the heck's a wabbit? Naruto blinked before an idea occurred to him. As in, a rabbit? Great, I'm gonna be fighting rabbits in their own damn burrow. Terrific. He'd hunted ordinary rabbits before. They were quick, agile and had surprisingly sharp claws and teeth. Scale them up to the same size as the squirrels and moles he'd fought before and Naruto was suddenly feeling even worse about meeting them on their home turf. Despite what most people tended to think about them, rabbits could be vicious little buggers. Letting out a breath and shaking away his nerves, Naruto drew his Tanto again and marched into the burrow at a cautious pace. Surprisingly, after about 10 paces into the underground burrow, the warren's layout started to change dramatically. Torches were set into the walls at set intervals and the tunnel itself expanded, becoming far smoother and more polished, looking more and more like something man-made rather than something carved by a bunch of mutant rabbits. Okay, this is starting to get weird, the gamer remarked quietly. He advanced along the burrow until he caught sight of the first monster in the warren. It was, unsurprisingly, a rabbit, albeit one the size of a greyhound. It was white, with black spots on it, a piebald rabbit. It was the little banner above its head that confused him though. Wabbit Warrior LV-15, Wascally Wabbit, is the gamer interface trying to mimic a guy with a speech impediment or something, Naruto deadpanned to himself. Shaking his head at the idea, he focused on the task at hand, namely, taking out the rabbit. Before he could do anything though, the rabbit blurred and vanished, reappearing in front of Naruto in an instant and kicking him into the wall. You have lost 100 HP, 100 from one kick? Gritting his teeth, Naruto engaged his Futon Chakra Nagashi, before kicking off of the wall and dashing forward, bringing his Tanto around in a quick series of attacks, only to miss as the nimble rabbit seemed to blur around him, dodging each attack with ease. Biting back a growl, Naruto quickly realized that he needed a better way of keeping track of the overly hasty rodent if he wanted to beat it. With a thought, he activated his Doden Mogura Kanchi Jutsu, allowing him to sense the opposing monster's movements through the surrounding earth. As if it could tell what he was doing, the Wabbit Warrior's eyes seemed to narrow onto him in a glare before it vanished again in a blur of speed. So that's how you're doing it, damned things bouncing off the walls and ceiling to boost its speed and make it harder to predict where it's going. Naruto thought as he tried to keep up with the rabbit's movements. While he was too slow to keep up with the movements physically, his sensory technique was at least able to tell him where the rabbit was landing. Feeling the long ears suddenly kick off from the wall directly behind him, Naruto twisted around, bringing one of his Tanto around in a broad slash. Shick with a single lucky hit, the rabbit's head was severed from its shoulders in a spurt of blood. You have slain, Wabbit Warrior, X1, you earn 500 Express. Doden Mogura Kanchi has leveled up, LV9 LV10. Looting. Done. You have looted, Jutsu Scroll Fragment, 1/3, X1. You have looted, Piebald Rabbit Fur, X1. You have looted 566 Ryo. A scroll fragment, Naruto blinked, and opened his inventory to see what that was about. Jutsu Scroll Fragment, 1/3, rare, a third of a Jutsu scroll that can be combined in the menu with its two missing parts to form a complete Jutsu scroll, allowing you to learn its contents. Information about the jutsu contained within the scroll is fragmented, but the word rabbit is prominent. Why do I have the feeling that this is gonna be a common thing from now on? Naruto groaned. His power was now making him work for a single jutsu. For a correct deduction, you receive +1 whis. Oh, just shut it already. Grumbling about mouthy powers, Naruto started sneaking down the tunnel. Along the way, he came across two more Wabbit warriors, managing to beat both using the same tactics as the first. One dropped a lucky rabbit's foot, and the other dropped another scroll fragment, which he attributed to his own luck being at the whim of a goddess. It was after that he came across a second variety of enemy, something quite a bit bigger than the basic rabbits he'd been fighting. Unlike the piebald Wabbit warriors, these ones were black-furred, with only the tips of their ears and feet having white on them. Wabbit Elite Warrior LV-17, Wretched Wascally Wabbit. That decided it. The gamer really was having fun with alliteration. Deciding that if this thing was even faster than its smaller cousins, then he definitely didn't want to let it get within arm's reach. Naruto sheathed both his Tanto and quickly started forming a set of hand seals. Futon. Senfukyu. Several orbs of compressed air shot from his mouth towards the rabbit. Even caught off guard, the black rabbit was still fast enough to dodge a couple of the wind bullets, but several more still managed to land, leaving it bloody and dazed. Literally. You have inflicted the dazed status on Wabbit Elite Warrior for 30 seconds. Not hesitating for an instant, Naruto darted in and drew one Tanto, severing the defenseless rabbit's head in a single strike. You have defeated Wabbit Elite Warrior. You gain 950 Express. As a result of a specific action, the skill Ansatsujutsu Zanshuzen has been created. Ansatsujutsu Zanshuzen Instant LV1 0% Assassination Technique. Decapitating cut is an assassination technique specifically designed to remove the target's head with a single swing, instantly killing them. Most practitioners pair this technique with other jutsu like the Doden, Shinju Zanshu or a Genjutsu to render the target helpless beforehand in order to make full, deadly usage of this technique. Adds 25% to critical chances against an immobilized, insensate or unaware enemy when targeting their neck specifically. Requires a bladed weapon to execute this technique. Futon Senfukyu has leveled up. LV11 LV12, looting, done. You have looted, Jutsu Scroll Fragment, 3/3. You have looted 4078 Ryo. Excitedly, Naruto went to his inventory and combined the 3 Jutsu Scroll Fragments that he had. Combining, done. You have acquired the Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo Jutsu Scroll. Do you wish to learn this jutsu? Huh. Sounds like another one of those kimono jutsu. Naruto mused curiously. Why the hell not? Some extra speed will definitely make beating these bunnies a bit easier. Congratulations. You have learned the Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo Jutsu. Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo. Active, LV1, 0%, Ninja Art. Speed of the Rabbit is a supplementary jutsu of the Kimono clan. Unlike the majority of the techniques used by the clan, this was a simple jutsu learned by all members upon gaining genin rank. Used when speed was of the essence over agility. A fully trained version of this jutsu could allow its user to outspeed a cantering horse. Costs 30 CP to activate and 15 CP per minute to maintain. While active, increases hidden stat, speed, by 5. While active, lowers dexterity stat by 10. Hand sign, rabbit. A hidden stat? The heck? Naruto blinked. Hidden stats? A hidden stat is one of your statuses that are invisible to you, but is affected by one or more of your visible stats. Speed is affected by your dexterity and endurance stats, for example. With time, and a few hidden quests, you can eventually reveal the Hadad panned at the screen before closing it. So, it raises my speed stat, but lowers one of the stats that determines the value of my speed stat in the first place. Yup. Definitely gonna have to level the crap out of this one. It sounds like it could be pretty useful for straight out speed, but right now it's just as much a hindrance as a help. As he went through the warren, Naruto fought and defeated more Wabbit warriors and Wabbit elite warriors, occasionally getting kicked into the wall by the bunnies in the process. It actually had a positive effect, as the 4th time it happened, the gamer gave him the weak regeneration passive skill, which restored a certain amount of his HP over time so long as he wasn't suffering from the starving or dehydrated status effects. It still hurt, but at least the damage was mitigated a little. In between the fighting, he'd come across a couple of chests, most of which had only contained a small stack of Ryo notes. Naruto wasn't one to turn down free money, so he'd happily added them to his growing pile of funds. The one thing that wasn't a pile of cash that he got from a chest was, to his surprise, a weapon schematic. Schematic. Inaba Han coat, super rare. A schematic showing the design for the Inaba Han coat, as well as directions on how to make them and what materials are needed to do so. Requires a LV15 blacksmith in order to be created successfully. Might need to go and see Tenten's dad about having these made. Naruto muttered, scanning the list of materials. Steel, chakra metal, wind-aligned chakra metal at that. Rabbit skins and teeth. He'd gotten several of each of those as loot for one of the Wabbit warrior and Wabbit elite warriors, respectively. And a pair of rabbit cores. The heck are those? Dismissing it for the moment, the gamer continued on into the warren. After dealing with another couple of Wabbit elite warriors, he came across a large chamber. Inside it, he gaped as he saw, ludicrously enough, an anthropomorphic rabbit, a humanoid rabbit. It had steel blue and white fur, and it was gnawing on a carrot lazily as it read a magazine, lying across blue couch. Naruto pinched himself to prove that no, he wasn't dreaming. Bugs Bunny, the wascally Wabbit LV21, that darn Wabbit. The hell? Naruto muttered, eyes wide. He was used to weird shit after gaining his gamer powers a year ago or so, but seeing a humanoid rabbit, reading a magazine while reclined on a sofa thing and eating a carrot, was by far the most bizarre thing he had seen yet. Everything else had been, if not normal by the standards of the elemental nations, then explainable. This just wasn't. What's up, Doc? The rabbit looked across the room at Naruto, who stiffened up. So, you're the gamer I've heard so much about. The name's Bugs Bunny. Don't suppose you know where the Great Carrot Festival is, do ya? I took a wrong turn at Albuquerque and ended up here instead. Knew I should've gone left. They have a festival for carrots? Naruto said in confusion. Woe is me. Well, the guy who's in charge of your systems promised to have me back to where I'm supposed to be once I give y'all a tutorial and practice run of this here dungeon. Bugs said with a put-upon sigh. Tutorial? The gamer blinked. Yep. Think about it, Doc. Every boss you've fought before now has been one that you've had to fight head-on, right? The rabbit flipped his magazine closed before storing it somewhere. Thing is, there are bosses that ain't so simple. Puzzle, tricks, gimmicks and races. Those are a few of the alternate ones. In order to beat me, you have to win in a game of tag. Tag? Really? Naruto deadpanned. What, y'all ain't ever played tag before? Bugs needled him. You're a level 21 boss monster according to the gamer, dude. Naruto pointed out dryly. Not to mention you're a rabbit. I doubt I could catch up to you if you really put the speed on. Bugs thought about that before realizing something. Wait, only level 21? I'm 82 years old. How am I only that strong? The rabbit cried out, stamping one overly long foot in outrage. Maybe your actual level is being suppressed so you aren't stomping me into the ground? Naruto suggested with a shrug. I'm only level 18, so it would make sense if you were being limited by my level, as a boss that is. Makes sense, Doc, though I'm still calling lazy writing on this one. The rabbit acquiesced. Well anyway, yeah, you were right that at my full speed, I'd leave ya in my dust. Plus I can dig and everything, so I'll limit myself. No special techniques, no digging, just regular running. Catch me inside of the time limit and you win. Simple, ain't it? Pausing to think, Naruto nodded slowly after a moment. And me? None of those jutsu things aimed at me. Thank you very much, Bugs said firmly. Jutsu. Sure whatever, Doc. Anyway, use all the enhancement stuff I want, but nothing offensive. The rabbit flapped one hand, that had a white glove on it for some reason, at Naruto. That includes those shuriken things. Shuriken. Tomato. Bugs shrugged. So, you and kid? Sure, what's the time limit? Naruto asked, a bit irked by the lackadaisical nature of the rabbit. 15 minutes. Give y'all a bit of leeway as this is the first time you're doing this, the rabbit said. Now then, on your marks. Ninpo. Kitsunrisu no Binsho, Ninpo. Usagi no Sokudo, Naruto muttered as he activated both of his speed and dexterity enhancing jutsu. He wasn't sure how fast both of them combined would make him, but he was willing to give it a shot. Get set. In GGOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOOO 10. Naruto absently noted a 15-minute countdown starting out of the corner of his eye and he sped after the rabbit. In terms of overall speed, Bugs was definitely faster, not to mention more maneuverable, using the tunnel walls to bounce off and quickly redirect his direction. Of course, Naruto wasn't too much behind him. Thanks to his high STA and reasonably high dex, the debuff from using Usagi no Sokudo was minimized by a fair bit. And of course, using the new jutsu in such a high-level race had its advantages. Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo has leveled up LV1 LV2. Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo has leveled up LV2 LV3. Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo has leveled up LV3 LV4. Ninpo Kitsunrisu no Binsho has leveled up LV5 LV6. Ninpo Kitsunrisu no Binsho has leveled up LV6 LV7. With every level boost that his two jutsu gained, the gap between Naruto and Bugs shortened. Even so, the blonde boy was painfully aware of the time ticking down, even as he twitched every time he got hit by a one-liner from the rabbit he was chasing. How now, brown cow? 7:14, almost, 5:59. Not quite, Doc. 4:30, Ninpo Usagi no Sokudo has leveled up LV4 LV5. Ninpo Kitsunrisu no Binsho has leveled up, LV7 LV8. Got you! Naruto shouted as he tackled Bugs out of the air in mid-leap. Landing on the ground with a thud. The blonde boy grinned at the stunned look in his adversary's eyes. Tag, you're it. Ha! Well done, Doc. Ya got me, Bugs Bunny chuckled. You have defeated Bugs Bunny, the Wascally Wabbit. You received 2700 Express. You receive Level 10 Scroll, X2. You receive Wind Chakra Metal, Ingot X2. You receive Rabbit Core, X2. You receive 20,000 Ryo. Getting off of the now defeated boss, Naruto blinked as the rabbit's body started to glow. Looks like I'm outta here, Bugs laughed. Next time ya come here, it'll be just a regular old rabbit you'll be up against, or whatever the bosses here are, anyway. Good luck, kid. With a flash of blue light, Bugs left. In his place was a scroll, which Naruto picked up. You have discovered the Taunt skill scroll. Do you wish to learn this skill? Why, if it does what I think it does. Hell yeah, Naruto smirked. Congratulations. You have learned the Taunt skill. Taunt. Passive, LV1, 0%. It is well dose ages that an angry man will make stupid mistakes. Taunt allows the user a chance to incite the target of the skill into reckless and foolish action. A warning that a user of this skill should heed is that while making someone angry is usually effective, there are some rare people who can control their anger and either not fall for the taunt in the first place or control themselves even if they do fall for it. The user will speak something to irritate and/or anger one target, with a 10% chance of success. If successful, the enemy will be inflicted with the enraged, angered, or, more rarely, berserk status effects, lasting for 30 seconds. Huh, sounds cool. The gamer commented. He did like making people act idiotically angry during his pranks. Not only was it funny as hell to watch people overreact like that, it also made it a lot easier for him to escape when they eventually started chasing after him. Clearing out the screens, he decided to take a look at the stuff he'd gotten for beating the boss. Wind Chakra Metal Ingot. Very rare, an ingot of chakra metal that has been infused with futon-aligned chakra for at least a month. Very useful in forging weapons and armor, especially for someone with a primary futon affinity. Rabbit Core. Very rare quality. B chakra mutations are widespread and numerous, existing wherever chakra has been used in the world. Treated as pest species by the inhabitants of the world, they are usually wiped out inside of a year. Those fortunate few that survive that time period, however, can have a slight chance to form a core within them, a chakra core. Possession of one of these chakra cores is what usually determines a true boss monster from a pseudo-boss monster. Extracted and used in the creation of medicine or equipment, just one of these can prove to be a highly beneficial item for those purposes. The most famous item made using a core is Samahata, one of the 7 swords of the mist. Its creator made use of a sulfur monosulfide quality shark chakra core in its construction, which is one reason why the Living Blade is among the most powerful of Kirigakure's 7 swords. Whoa! Note to self, stay away from that sword, Naruto gulped. He'd done research since the rarity and material quality system had been unlocked and knew that anything ranked as being SS in either quality or rarity was going to be obnoxiously powerful. Definitely not something he wanted to run into when he still hadn't even reached level 20 yet. He'd also researched regular dungeons, so the first thing he did was return to the main chamber and start searching it. Sometimes, or so his research into dungeons in the help section of his gamer power had said, a boss had one or more hidden treasures in their boss room. His decision was rewarded by the discovery of a half-buried chest behind the couch that Bugs had been lying on. Inside was another schematic, this time for the Inaba Suniate, armor for the legs unlike the Inaba Han coat, that Naruto already had all of the materials for earlier. The new schematic pretty much the same as the first one, with identical materials. This led to an interesting choice for Naruto. He could only make one of the two, but the question was, which would be better for him to get? The Han coat would protect his arms, while the Suniate would protect his lower legs. In the end, it boiled down to what they would do for him ability-wise. The Han coat might give me a boost in attack, but I'm pretty good with that right now, Naruto reasoned. If anything, the Suniate will maybe give me I dunno. A boost to my speed or something. Okay. I'll ask Tenten if her dad'll make the Inaba Suni 8 for me. I'll have to pay him. Hope I have enough. Checking the amount of Ryo he had, Naruto gave it a 50-50 chance that he had enough. Deciding to grind over the next couple of days to build up his funds, and possibly get another couple of rabbit cores, the fresh genin gave the central borough one final look over before heading back to the Amikage apartments. He was getting hungry, after all. The next day, after missions and training Hokage's office. Mokuton enhanced seeds, you say, Naruto-kun? Sarutobi blinked as he gazed at the handful of seemingly innocuous seeds sitting on his desk. That's what the gamer calls them, Gigi. Apparently they're the seeds of a tree that was grown using Mokuton ninjutsu. Naruto replied with a nod. Also, there's this. Reaching into his inventory, the boy brought out the Mokuton Kekkei Genkei journal, Volume 1, that he'd earned the previous day. That's one of the Shodem's missing notebooks. The Sandame exclaimed in shock as he reached out and took the small leather-bound journal, holding it almost reverently as he opened a page. Yes, he'd recognize his former mentor's handwriting anywhere. The Shodem was a great man and warrior, but he had terrible penmanship, unlike the Nidame. It is? The genin blinked. But isn't he the only person to have ever used the Mokuton Kekkei Genkei? Why would he have written this thing? Some Kekkei Genkei are rare even in the clans they are born to, disappearing for entire generations before suddenly re-emerging. A fine example would be the Shikatsumyaku, Dead Bone Pulse, of the now extinct Kagaya clan of Mizu no Kuni, which supposedly only emerged once every 3 generations. Sarutobi explained, his eyes never straying from the journal resting in his hands. Shodem-sama believed that his Mokuton might have possessed the same properties, so in his later years, he took time to write 5 journals detailing all he could on the Mokuton's jutsu and training methods in case someone in the Senju clan regained the ability sometime in the generations after his death. Sadly, there was an attack on Konoha during the Second Great Shinobi War. A team of saboteurs managed to sneak in and destroy a great deal of the ancestral Senju compound. The journals were believed lost, either destroyed with the compound or stolen by enemy agents. No matter the means by which you did it, my boy, you have done Konoha a great service by returning even a portion of the Shodem's lost legacy. Teehehehe, Naruto awkwardly scratched the back of his head, not sure how to handle the praise. Only to suddenly blink as another window popped up. Secret quest discovered and completed. Legacy of the first Hokage. 1. Senju Hashirama wrote 5 journals detailing the secrets to utilizing his Mokuton Kekkei Genkei to the fullest. In the years since the passing of both him and his brother, Tobarama, the 5 have gone missing. You have successfully retrieved the first. Well done. Quest reward. Plus 1000 reputation with Konoha Anbu, plus 500 reputation with, plus 5000 XP, plus 60,000 Ryo. Access to secret quest. Legacy of the first Hokage. 2. Random Jutsu Scroll. Kaden. Habashiri. Reward from third Hokage. Secret quest chain activated. Legacy of the first Hokage. 2. Senju Hashirama wrote 5 journals detailing the secrets to utilizing his Mokuton Kekkei Genkei to the fullest. In the years since the passing of both him and his brother, Tobarama, the 5 have gone missing. You have successfully retrieved the first, now seek out the second. Quest objective. Locate another rare monster and defeat it for a chance to discover another of the 5 journals of Senju Hashirama. Quest reward. Plus 1000 reputation with Konoha Anbu, plus 500 reputation with, plus 7500 XP, plus 70,000 Ryo. Access to secret quest. Legacy of the first Hokage. 3. Random piece of equipment. Reward from third Hokage. Quest failure. Death quest has been auto-accepted. Your gamer power is most irksome if it's going to force you to accept missions that could lead to your death. Sarutobi frowned as Naruto relayed what had happened, somewhat annoyed at his surprise being spoiled. And yes, I have a reward to give to you. The day after tomorrow will be the first joint training session between the graduating Genin and Gai's team. Once that is finished, Uruka-kun will be released from his duties to take you to the shinobi section of the library Forto style and a Kodachi style. Additionally, this is something that I recall you were offered before by your gamer ability. Opening a drawer, the Hokage pulled out what looked like a steel dagger, with the symbol of the hidden leaf engraved into it, and handed it to Naruto. This is a master-crafted collapsible spear, Naruto exclaimed after using observe on it. Yes, it's a handy weapon to have in a tight spot. Sarutobi nodded. I vastly prefer a bow myself, but a spear can come in handy when you least expect it. I try to learn a spear style as well, Naruto-kun. Something called out to me about this weapon when I was considering what to give you for retrieving the journal. I think it would be wise to at least create an improvised spear style. Okay. I have an improvised bow style anyway, so a spear style shouldn't be that hard to come up with. The boy nodded, tucking the weapon into his main supply pouch. I'll work on it, Gigi. Very good, Naruto-kun. The Hokage nodded back. Was there anything else? Yeah, could you do something about the paperwork that Asuma-sensei has to get through to teach Ino and Sakura-chan ninjutsu and stuff? Naruto requested. He still hasn't gotten through it all, and I can't risk taking those two into Training Ground 13 with nothing more than a bit of harsh language under their belts. Coughing to conceal his amusement, Sarutobi nodded again. Very well. It is odd though, he should have gotten through the paperwork over a week ago. I shall investigate this promptly, Naruto-kun. The old Hokage had a feeling that someone was playing bureaucratic silly buggers with his son's team for whatever reason, and that wasn't to be tolerated. He would have to make an example of them to make sure everyone knew that he could and would come down on them like a ton of bricks if they acted beyond their remit. Danzo, why can I not shake the feeling that you have a hand in this somehow? Sarutobi thought in irritation. His old teammate had kept himself fairly quiet since the missing Enin incident, but the old village leader wasn't fooled by Danzo's seemingly benign attitude as of late. He had failed to possibly acquire Naruto, so he was lying low until Sarutobi was distracted so another attempt could be made. Ah, Naruto-kun. I would ask that you keep the discovery of the Shodem's journal a secret. He requested calmly. Such a thing being discovered could cause quite a hullabaloo which I would prefer to avoid. Sure. I wasn't planning on telling anybody about it anyway. Naruto agreed with an easy shrug. It wasn't something really worth bragging about in his opinion. It wasn't like he'd gone out looking for the thing. After a few more minutes of discussion about casual topics, Sarutobi undid the seal his office was under and watched as his surrogate grandson left before snapping his fingers, making an Anbu appear. Summon Tenzo. He ordered, the masked figure vanishing to obey his orders. Minutes later, a cat-masked man appeared kneeling before his desk. And Sarutobi once more sealed the room. Remove your mask, Tenzo. After a moment of hesitation, the man removed his mask, revealing a fairly plain face with a stoic expression, offset slightly by his slightly overlarge eyes. Hokage-sama, the last of Orochimaru's Mokuton experiments left alive, said. It is to my understanding that as Kino of Ne, you learned Mokuton Jutsu from a scroll given to you by Shimura Danzo. The Hokage said bluntly. Is this the case? Hi, Hokage-sama. Tenzo said with a nod. It was adequate in the basics, but lacked any intermediate or advanced techniques or exercises. An operative recently discovered one of the Shodem's long-lost journals. Sarutobi informed the man bluntly, gesturing to the book on the desk. You are relieved of all of your duties as an Anbu outside emergency conditions until further notice. You're to take the journal and read it from cover to cover so that you can increase your understanding of your Kekkei Genkei, as well as to expand and improve upon your jutsu arsenal. I expect weekly reports on your progress. But sir, this is a relic of Konoha's history. The former Ne operative protested with wide eyes locked on the journal. It should be in a museum. It is something that Shodem-sama wrote in order for it to be used. Tenzo, not left to gather dust on a shelf. The Hokage stated firmly. He would want someone who had his bloodline limit to make use of it. Tenzo seemed to still at that. As you say, Hokage-sama. The Anbu nodded. What about the other journals? The operative in question is following up a lead on another one, but it might take some months before we will know if it amounts to anything. Sarutobi replied evenly. It will give you more than enough time to practice what you read in the book. I am authorizing you to use Training Ground 78 exclusively for your training with this book. Ground 78 was one of the most isolated and distant training grounds available to Konoha shinobi while still being within Konoha's actual domain. That, combined with its lack of any specialized terrain or function, left it mostly ignored by most Jonin sensei and most shinobi in general for that matter. However, it was popular for those seeking to test out and experiment with new and somewhat hazardous jutsu, allowing plenty of open terrain that could be damaged and demolished without causing any serious repercussions. Thus, it would not be that surprising for a high-ranking shinobi to request the grounds for private use for a few days or weeks in order to test out a new jutsu they'd been working on. The field itself was protected by a fairly strong barrier ninjutsu and several genjutsu seals to prevent anyone from spying on exactly what kind of techniques were being practiced within. He trusted Tenzo to be smart enough to augment that security on his own without needing to be ordered to do so, given the nature of what he'd be practicing. "I will do my best." Tenzo nodded, reverently lifting the book up and sealing it away in a scroll he had on him before replacing his mask. "With your permission, I shall now go to carry out your orders, Hokage-sama." With a nod from the Hokage, the man vanished after the security seals were deactivated. Settling back in his chair, Sarutobi Hiruzen sighed wearily. He bemoaned, getting too old for this shit. Chapter 25. Joint Training Session. The next day, Training Ground 78 Tenzo, former NEI agent and currently a member of ANBU, flexed his fingers nervously as he looked around the training ground. TG-78 was spartan, almost barren, in appearance, with only the occasional rock outcropping to break up the monotonous plains of grass and dirt. The wide, open space was perfect for testing out volatile jutsu, particularly with the myriad of Kekai ninjutsu set up around the training ground's outer perimeter, preventing anyone from seeing, hearing, sensing, or even feeling anything that happened within its boundaries. So far, he'd only had time for a quick, frantic look through the Shodem's journal, but that little bit of skimming had already answered so many of the things that the scroll Shimura Danzo had provided had glossed over, inferred, or simply left blank about his implanted Kekai Genkei. And to think, it was only one of 5 such journals. He truly owed the operative who'd located this precious treasure an immense debt all on his own. He once again reaffirmed his vow to discover their identity and personally acknowledge and repay the debt however he could. For now though, Mokuton. Roppongi Daichuro no Jutsu. Wood Style. 6 Trees Great Pillar Prison Jutsu. He declared after using the ram, rooster and snake hand signs. Instantly the ground in front of his feet split open, 6 large, barren trees shooting upward out of the ground in a circle. Roots and branches stretched outward to merge with their neighbors in a thick latticework as the tops merged in the middle. In just a few moments, a massive wooden cage sat in the middle of the field, thick walls strong and intricate enough to block any attempt at escape that couldn't shatter them outright. Just 2 days ago and this would have left me half ready to collapse, Tenzo thought, shaking his head slightly in disbelief. Due to the artificial nature of Mokuton implanted within him, he lacked the large chakra coils and dense chakra of a naturally born senju, which was a major disadvantage considering how chakra-intensive the more powerful Mokuton techniques could be. Even with all his training and efforts, the more powerful of the Shodem's jutsu were still utterly beyond him. Oh, he could put up a house or 2 easily enough, or form a regular-sized cage, and just growing trees had always been fairly simple. But something as intricate and wide-scale as the Roppongi Daichuro would have left him collapsing to his knees as if he'd just survived a free-for-all with several of fellow ANBU agents all at once. Now, he was barely breathing hard. He'd been trying to develop a more chakra-efficient mass capture technique using the Mokuton technique for years. And now, one of the jutsu he'd previously discarded as too chakra-invasive was working perfectly. All from a quick, frantic once-over of the first journal. "Looks like it's time I hit the books." Tenzo chuckled, heading toward the small section of the training ground where he'd set up his camp. The next day, Training Field 7, you have entered Training Field 7, Field of the Memorial Stone. All gains to Jutsu Express are increased by 2%. All gains to Regular Express are increased by 2%. All gains to Skill Express are increased by 2%. Whoever's got first dibs on this place is a damn lucky son of a bitch. That was Naruto's first thought as he walked into the training field. So far, the regular training fields he'd encountered barely gave a 0.5% increase to express gains, or maybe a 1 or 2% increase on a certain type of jutsu or training. And the training grounds filled with chakra mutations didn't give any sort of bonus to express gains. What the heck made this one so much better? Hey Naruto, Tenten called out, moving forward to clap him on the shoulder when she noticed him approaching, a ready grin on her lips. Ready to show everyone what we've got. Heck yeah. The blonde gamer replied instantly, matching his female friend's grin. What about you, Ten-chan? I've been practicing with all the jutsu Asuma-sensei taught me, she informed him proudly. Bet you my Kakyu can beat any jutsu of yours? Oh, you're so on, Naruto smirked back. Their exchange had the rest of the rookie 9 blinking and looking between the two in astonishment. It had been obvious when they'd been moving in that Naruto and the older girl knew each other from somewhere, but the fact that he seemed so relaxed around her, more so than he did with any girl in their class, took them off guard. For his part, Neji was simply frowning slightly at his kunoichi teammate, surprised at how friendly she was with the troublemaker who'd somehow managed to con his way into the position as their landlord. He'd heard about their encounter with the Nuke Nin, of course, and knew that they were at least friendly with each other afterward. He simply hadn't been expected her to greet him so energetically. Then again, it was an acknowledged fact that shared traumatic experiences generally led to people growing close far quicker than normal, so it wasn't that surprising. It didn't make the annoyance he felt at seeing her interact so easily with the riff-raff any less prominent. However, before he could voice this annoyance, several puffs of smoke heralded the arrival of the various Jonin-sensei. Asuma offered a lazy wave to his team and Kurenai offered Hinata a gentle smile. The silver-haired Kakashi studiously ignored everyone around him, particularly the exuberant green-clad figure next to him as Maida Guy offered the entire troop of genin a nice guy smile and thumbs up. Alright, gather round genin, Asuma called out, absently giving his cigarette one last puff before taking it out and incinerating in a small flare of Kaden chakra. No need to get his kinda sorta girlfriend up on his back for smoking in front of the kids. He gave the 12 genin a quick once-over as they assembled around the 4 adults before offering the entire group a genial smile. Now, let's start this little shindig with a quick round of introductions. We Jonin will start you off. I'm Sarutobi Asuma. You lot may have already seen me around since I live in the Omegakure apartments as well. I'm Team 10's Jonin Sensei, and I specialize in Bukajutsu and Ninjutsu, particularly Kaden and Futon techniques. Kurenai was next, stepping forward as he stepped back to give her center stage, offering the gathered genin a beatific smile. I am Yuhi Kurenai and I'm the Jonin Sensei for Team 8. My speciality is Genjutsu, though I am also quite capable in Taijutsu as well. Yo, the name's Hitaki Kakashi. The Cyclopean Jonin offered next, not even bothering to step forward as he offered the group a half-hearted wave. I suppose I'm the Jonin Sensei for Team 7. For my sins. As for my speciality, don't really have one, sorry. Maybe assassination, I suppose. Kakashi, you shouldn't be so unyouthful around your precious students, Guy admonished him loudly. Also, you know over 1,000 ninjutsu, is that not enough to make you a ninjutsu specialist? Sorry Guy. Did you say something? Kakashi deadpanned innocently, not even bothering to look at the other Jonin. The bowl-cut man faceplanted for a brief instant before regaining his feet in an instant, his face overflowing with literal waterfalls of dramatic tears. Curse you and your overly hip and too cool ways, Kakashi, Guy declared loudly, before twisting around and facing the genin again, his niece Guy smiled back in full force. Hiya. The name's Maida Guy, Konoha's sublime beast of prey. I lead the former Team 9. Rechristened as Team Guy after a full year of service. I specialize in the most youthful arts of Taijutsu and Bukajutsu. Ino and Sakura stared at the bushy-eyed man, both eyes twitching in abstract, fashion-based horror. Sasuke also looked particularly disturbed and his fingers were twitching as if he was keeping himself from forming hand signs. Kiba merely stared in fascinated horror while Shino's hive began to audibly buzz from within him. Shikamaru looked like he was one more word away FRMS and heading back to the apartments to try and sleep this off. Choji simply continued to munch his snacks stoically. Naruto stared uncomprehendingly for a moment before leaning closer to Tenten. Is he always like this? He whispered nervously. All the fucking Time. The aspiring weapon mistress bit out in a deadpan, her eyes blank and dead. Welcome to my world for the last year. Clearing his throat to break through the awkward silence that followed Guy's enthusiastic introduction, Asuma started up again. Now, I know most of you already know each from either the academy, your clans, or your own misadventures. He shot Naruto and Tenten a grin at that, causing both genin to blush slightly. So, we'll keep this simple to break the ice. Just introduce yourself and show off whatever jutsu you're best at or most proud of. We'll go by team number and work our way up. So Kakashi's kids, you're up first. Scowling slightly at what he thought was a waste of time, Sasuke slouched forward and decided to get it over with as quickly as possible. Turning to face a barren patch of the training grounds, he began forming hand signs. I'm Uchiha Sasuke, and my favorite jutsu is this. Finishing the quick string of 6 seals, Sasuke brought one hand up to his mouth. Kaden. Gokaku no Jutsu. Fire style, Great Fireball Jutsu. With a powerful exhalation, the last Uchiha spat out a large fireball that slammed into the ground several dozen feet away, creating a large, smoldering crater in the earth. Huh, not bad for a fresh genin. Asuma noted absently, tossing Kakashi a curious look. So, that means he's considered an adult by the Uchiha's standards. Bet that caught you off guard. Somewhat, responded the silver-haired Jonin with a slight shrug. He was already wearing the clan symbol on his back, so I was half expecting it. Honestly wasn't sure if he knew about that tradition or not, considering how young he was when it happened. The introduction continued quickly after that, most of the gathered genin eager to show off their hard-earned skills and jutsu. Kiba quickly showed off the Shikyaku no Jutsu, 4 legs jutsu. That was the basis of his clan's fighting style, while Shino calmly and meticulously displayed his Hajutsu. Muchiyose, secret jutsu. Insect calling, which attracted nearby insects to him. Hinata was next, shyly going through a quick, basic kata of the Jukin, gentle fist, style. Shikamaru, after being threatened by an impatient Ino, laconically showed off his clan's ninpo. Kagemain no Jutsu. Ninja art. Shadow imitation jutsu. Using a willing Choji as demonstration dummy. Choji, for his part, happily showed off his Baika no Jutsu, expansion technique. Tenten started things off for the former Team 9, sending 10 shuriken and kunai into the bark of a distant tree in less than 10 seconds, leaving a perfect Konoha symbol embedded into the bark. Lee then happily proceeded to show off a Konoha senpu, leaf whirlwind, to kick the head off a training dummy Guy had happily provided. Neji finished their team's demonstration using a technique called Hake Kusho, 8 trigrams vacuum palm, to blast the rest of the dummy into splinters from several feet away. Then it was Team 10's turn, with Sakura starting things off by demonstrating her Suioki Bunshin no Jutsu using the nearby river. Ino, not to be shown up, demonstrated her Ninpo. Shintenshin no Jutsu, ninja art. Mind transfer jutsu. To take control of a nearby bird and have it peck at Naruto's head. Real funny, Ino. Naruto growled out as he rubbed at his forehead above his Hite 8 where the sparrow had got him. I thought so. The Mindwalker smirked back. What's the matter, Prankster King, can't take any of your own medicine? Naruto grumbled a bit under his breath at that. Asuma just chuckled a bit from his spot and then waved Naruto forward. Your turn, Naruto, now show me something new. Gotcha. The name's Uzumaki Naruto. The blonde proclaimed proudly. And I've got a technique that I just came up with on my own a few days ago. Check it out. Reaching for his waist, he drew Sumair with his right hand before pausing and looking at Guy. Guy-sensei? You wouldn't have another of those training dummies I could use, would you? This one's a lot more impressive if I have something to use it on. Of course, young Naruto. Just 1 second. The spandex-clad Jonin agreed happily. In a blur of green, a fresh target dummy was suddenly planted in the ground. Thanks, Guy-sensei. You rock, Naruto returned the man's grin. You guys might want to step back though, this jutsu's a bit wild. Taking him at his word, the Jonin ushered their respective genin back a few paces as a bright blue glow appeared around Sumair's blade. Huh? The Futon Chakra Nagashi no Jutsu? Kakashi muttered with a raised eyebrow. Fairly impressive, but not what I was expecting after the build-up. Nah, I taught him that 1 month ago. Asuma shook his head, even as the sound of shrieking winds started to emanate from Naruto's blade. I think the kid's managed to develop something new for himself using it as a base. Should be interesting. Suddenly the blue light expanded outward, expanding into a blade-shaped mass of chakra taller than even Asuma or Guy. The sound of shrieking winds intensifying as even more air was being cut by the blade of wind chakra. Drawing his arm back, Naruto's focused scowl was locked onto his target before he brought his weapon around with a shout. Futon Chakra Nagashi. Danto. With an explosive burst of wind, the blade swept straight through the dummy. For a moment, it looked like it hadn't been harmed by the technique. Then Naruto nonchalantly sheathed his tanto, the slight click of it hitting home in the saya coinciding with the dummy splitting straight along the path of Naruto's cut, the top half tottering backward before hitting the ground with a dull thud. Holy crap, Kiba gulped out. Huh, neat, Asuma muttered slowly. That kinda looked like what I do with my trench knives when I'm using my heen, flying swallow, jutsu, only bigger, much bigger. Well, that kind of chakra flow isn't exactly uncommon. There's several other chakra flow techniques that produce similar effects, not to mention the samurai's samurai saber, technique. Still, first time I've seen something that damn huge though. Chakra cost must be a pain and a half though. True, but with Naruto's reserves it shouldn't be much of a problem for him, Kakashi pointed out softly. Asuma couldn't argue that. Kid was a frickin' chakra dynamo. Shaking his head, he returned his focus to the genin. Alright, that was a fairly impressive display from all of you. The bearded Jonin called out as he retook center stage. Now, to be fair, we Jonin will show you kids one of our favorite techniques. Naruto. You mind giving me some Kage Bunshin to work with? You got it, sensei. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, Naruto grinned, making the clone hand sign. In puffs of chakra smoke, 20 or so copies of himself appeared. Blinking in surprise, Neji activated his Byakugan only to instantly freeze up at what he saw. Those clones each have their own chakra network, they're actually shadow clones, he muttered out in shock. Perhaps he'd underestimated his teammate's new acquaintance a tad. Sheesh, I can't believe that idiot can just throw those things around like that. Sakura groaned, rubbing her head. Just the thought of how much chakra that has to cost is making my head ache. Asuma simply grinned as he moved a bit away from where his fellows and the genin had gathered. Alright kid, send them at me. You heard him boys, charge, the blonde Uzumaki roared out. Whooping and hollering their own battle cries, the 20-odd clones charged forward, many drawing out their copies of Tsubaki and Sumair as they did. Asuma merely smirked. With a smooth, well-practiced motion, he shifted his left hand to form a half-ram hand sign in front of his chest, his right moving down with his palm parallel to the ground. An intense golden into life behind his back, forming a large, golden statue in the form of the 1,000-armed cannon, a multitude of arms fanning out behind its form. What the? Both Neji and Hinata instinctively activated their Byakugan, allowing them to see the golden chakra that Asuma was using. It was strange. It looked human, but it seemed to have been altered somehow, unlike anything the two genin had seen before. Every one of the attacking shadow clones were suddenly blocked by nigh invisible arms stretching out from behind the cannon, even those few that had activated their own Futon Chakra Nagashi. Hopping back, the clones exchanged looks, splitting into two mostly even groups that split off and tried to encircle the Jonin from both sides. Futon. Yukazi, one group shouted after making the bird hand sign. A positive flurry of wind bolts shot at Asuma, at least 10 from each clone in the group. Sweden. Yudachi, the second group shouted, having made the snake, ram, rat and horse hand signs. In this case, it was dozens upon dozens of water darts that appeared and fired at Asuma. That's enough of that, playtime's over. The bearded Jonin smirked before his face became serious and he focused on his jutsu. Raigo. Senjusatsu, welcoming approach, 1,000-armed murder. In an instant, the cannon turned red and became angry, changing from a gentle, Buddhistic figure into that of a raging demon, before dozens of fists lashed out, destroying both the incoming attacks and the shadows clones which had created them in an instant. Wow. Naruto gulped. He noted a window popping up and looked at it out of the corner of his eye. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Has leveled up. LV10 LV11. Futon. Yukazi. Has leveled up. LV5 LV6. Sweden. Udachi. Has leveled up. LV5 LV6. At least he got something from that. Still scary watching yourself get one-shotted. That was a technique I learned from a dear friend of mine, a fellow member of the Guardian Shinobi 12. Asuma informed the awestruck genin. Afraid it's not one I'm capable of teaching, though, for two big reasons. First, I'd need permission from the Fire Temple to pass on the technique. Second, it requires special training to create the Senzoku no Sai, gift of the sages, chakra that it uses, and you need training as a ninso, ninja monk, to unlock that. My friend taught me the basics, but I'm nowhere near qualified to even teach those to anyone. After Asuma's rather dramatic performance, the other displays went by fairly quickly. Guy stepped forward next, demonstrating a quick, powerful combination of his Goken, strong fist, fighting style, and finishing with an advanced form of the Konoha Senpu Lee had demonstrated, the Konoha Goriki Senpu, Leaf Strong Whirlwind. A spinning backwards kick so powerful that it completely cleaved through the trunk of the thick, healthy tree he'd used as practice dummy, sending the top portion clattering backwards into the woods and bringing down several more trees in its path. Kakashi had facepalmed at the rampant destruction of his training ground. "You're replanting those, Guy," he'd muttered in annoyance. Kurenai had stepped forward next and, like Asuma, had requested a few clones of her own. Sadly, the 6 Naruto had provided for her didn't even get a chance to fight back as Kurenai demonstrated a technique combination she called Enshosui, Apricot Blossom Droop. A swift elbow drop had destroyed the first clone, followed by a pair of swift kicks dispatching the next two, before she seeming breathed out a cloud of cherry blossoms that engulfed the remaining 3 before exploding. Apparently, the blossoms were actually miniature explosive tags covered with a small genjutsu to make them look like simple flower petals. Sakura had been very much intrigued by that part. Kakashi had stepped forward last, demonstrating a single jutsu that was, ironically enough, Naruto's worst element, lightning. Still, seeing the Raiden, Raiju Suiga, lightning style, lightning beast tracking fang, had really made him want to work with his weakest element until he could at least pull off that jutsu. Creating a literal lightning dog to attack your enemies that the user can literally control and direct using a leash of lightning connected to their hand. So cool. Hey, Kakashi sensei, are there any other elemental versions of that jutsu? The blonde hadn't been able to keep himself from asking. Kakashi had actually seemed to pause and consider it for a moment. Well, the closest I can think of is the Kachiusei. Doden. Suiga no Jutsu. Some. Earth style. Tracking Fang Jutsu. But that can only be used by someone who's signed a contract with a canine sum contract. There's also a Sweden technique called Sweden. Suiju, water style. Water beast. But that one's a fair bit more advanced and a B-rank technique. Ah, the boy seemed to slump in disappointment. And lightning's my worst element too. Asuma chuckled at his genin's overreaction, before clapping his hands together to get everyone's attention. Anyway, now that the ice is well and truly broken, let's get to the meat of the day, getting you kids some practical training. Sakura, Ino and Shikamaru, you 3 will be starting out with Guy and Kakashi for taijutsu and ninjutsu training. Kakashi in particular will be helping you each learn at least one offensive ninjutsu. Shino, Kiba, Sasuke and Choji, you 4 will be working with Kurenai on learning at least a couple basic genjutsu. Lee, Tenten, Neji, Hinata and Naruto, you'll all be working with me first. We'll switch out in a couple of hours to get you all a bit of training everywhere you need it. Yash, and what youthful activity will we be working at Asuma-sensei? Lee called out excitedly. Damn it, the kid really is a Guy clone. Asuma thought with a sweat drop. Mind, body, and personality included. Kami save us all. Mix of weapons practice and training in how to fight against weapon wielders, he replied simply. Hey, why isn't Naruto in the genjutsu group? Kiba called out. It was his worst subject in the academy. Simply put, there's not a lot genjutsu training can do for him. Naruto's problem is basically that his chakra reserves are frankly ridiculous for someone his age, which in turn severely inhibits his natural chakra control. Asuma explained, going with the cover story he and his father had agreed on. That's why he can't use either genjutsu, which requires fine chakra control to be effective, or the regular bunshin, which requires so little chakra that he can't manipulate it without far better control than normal. The only way for him to overcome this issue is to have him train extensively in various chakra control exercises to help refine his control and eventually build up his ability to manipulate his chakra. Hey, I'm standing right here. Naruto protested with a pout. It's not your fault, kid. Asuma assuaged his genin's bruised pride. He knew the lie might be a bit degrading for the kid, but it was better than announcing his unique status for one and all to hear. Your sensei back in the academy should have noted it ages ago and had you working on your control from the very start. The fact that it took until Iruka fully took over your classes for the problem to be noticed is another black mark against them in my opinion. Naruto grumbled a bit more, but didn't argue as their group moved a bit away to start their training. Alright then, Asuma started once their groups were separated. Naruto, I remember my old man mentioning that Iruka would be picking you up after this training session to hit the library in order to grab a Tanto and Kodachi style for you to work with. So, actual training with them might not be all that useful for now. Once the lecture's over you're free to practice your jutsu if you want. Actually sensei, I've got a new weapon I was hoping to test out, not to mention I was sure Ten-chan would want to get a look at it. Naruto offered cheekily before he drew out and extended his new collapsible spear. Tenten naturally went gaga the moment sabbing the new pointy stabby out of Naruto's hand and examining it in minute detail, looking for the maker's mark. Huh, I don't recognize this symbol. She muttered curiously as she examined the spear's butt, where the mark was located. She knew most of the maker's marks for the smiths operating in and around Konoha. Let me have a look, Asuma requested, taking the spear and examining the mark before he grinned. Oh, that's old Io's mark. Not surprised you haven't seen it before, he doesn't deal much with the weapon dealers. The man used to be a bit of a legend in the village's R&D department, came up with some seriously scary shit during the Second and Third Wars. He's retired now, but still runs a smithy outside the village limits, mostly to keep the property damage he causes to a minimum. Crazy old man like to work on any project catches his attention and most tend to be pretty over the top. Over the top? Tenten asked curiously. The old-timer loves his weapons. Problem is that he tends to make them just for the sake of seeing if it's possible rather than any actual combat applications these days. The Jonin explained with an amused smirk. A couple of his latest projects include a Dai Shuriken propelled via explosives and a kunai the size of a Zanbato. The heck? Naruto offered, sweat dropping, his thoughts being echoed by every other genin in earshot. Asuma just chuckled, an amused grin on his face. Old Io did his part for Konoha, now he's just spending his twilight years doing what he loves, tinkering with weapons. And some of the stuff he puts out can still be pretty impressive, so the village keeps him funded. Partly true, but the semi-senile old smith had truly done a great deal for the good of Konoha over his life, and the village always repaid the loyalty of its shinobi in kind. Anyway, we should get started. Hinata, Naruto, you're both up first. You two have probably got the least amount of experience fighting against weapons out of everyone here, so Tenten and I are going to go over some of the more common weapons you're likely to encounter in the field. After that, Lee and Neji will offer up some advice based on their own experiences fighting weapon users in the field. This will be pointless. Neji cut in sharply, shaking his head. Hinata-sama is fated to stay the same, no amount of training will change that. Hinata seemingly wilted in on herself at the scornful glare from her cousin. Asuma on the other hand, simply looked pissed. Are you refusing a direct order from a Jonin, Genin Hyuga? I am merely stating that this type of training will offer her no benefit. The Hyuga prodigy retorted shortly. What is wrong with simply pointing out a fact? Man, you're a... Naruto offered up, smiling innocently even as Neji's pale gray locked onto him in a glare. That's also a fact. So, going by your own logic, you shouldn't mind me pointing it out in the least. Enough, Asuma grunted out icily, looking sharply between the two teens. Genin Hyuga, consider yourself formally reprimanded for conduct unbecoming a member of the Konohagakure shinobi forces. Your Jonin-sensei and I will be having words when this session is over, so you can expect at least a deduction in your pay for the next few months. Naruto, stop taunting someone who's got a year of experience on you and is an accredited genius in the village's deadliest style of nin taijutsu. Understood, Asuma-sensei. Naruto nodded, sounding thoroughly unrepentant. Neji Hyuga dislikes you. Oh, how am I ever going to survive? Naruto thought sarcastically. After that, Neji pretty much refused to interact with either him or Hinata any more than was strictly necessary to follow Asuma's orders, leaving the majority of the work on Tenten and Lee under Asuma's scowling supervision. On the bright side, as a result of being subjected to a detailed and interesting lecture on the subject of facing weapon wielders while barehanded or only wielding a kunai and shuriken, you have gained the temporary perk, Man Against Steel, for the next 30 days. Man Against Steel, passive, 30 days. In spite of its name, this perk allows the user to gain an advantage against any and all handheld close combat weapons. Swords, staves, nunchaku, tonfa, kama, kusarigama, polearms. The list goes on. As long as this buff perk is active, you take 5% less damage from any weapon and gain a 5% bonus to any dodge chance when confronting weapon wielders. The perk itself was fairly neat, but it was a bit disappointing that it was only a temporary buff. Naruto was honestly a bit worried about why he'd need something like that in the next month or so. Sparring with his new dagger, spear against Lee was an interesting experience. The older was insanely fast, and his taijutsu was just scary, even if the boy's over-exuberance was a bit grating. He'd also gotten some good experience with his new weapon as well. Watching Hinata spar with Tenten was also intriguing. He knew that Hinata didn't really like hurting people thanks to her status page, but sparring at least, if nowhere else, showed that the girl had some genuine skill beneath that meek shell. They rotated partners a few times over the course of a couple hours before Asuma called a halt to their current training and shuffled them around between different groups and tutors. Naruto was put with Guy and Kakashi, along with Hinata, and they were quickly joined by Kiba and Choji. Shino, Sasuke, Ino and Sakura were put with Asuma while Shikamaru, Neji, Lee and Tenten were sent to Kurenai. Yash, greetings youthful genin. Guy boomed happily. To start off our most youthful training session, please let me know what taijutsu styles you practice. I know that Hinata is a practitioner of the Juken style, which I'm already quite familiar with. I'm halfway decent with the advanced kata for the Hokage style, but that's about it. Naruto answered with a shrug. He'd already been planning on looking into a more advanced taijutsu style for when he maxed out advanced Hokage taijutsu when he and Iruka hit the library today. I use the Inuzuka clan's Jujin taijutsu, beast human taijutsu, Kiba answered. Baika, expansion, style. Choji offered simply around another mouthful of chips. I suppose the last two are to be expected given your clans. Both have capable and firmly established styles that they've been practicing for years. Guy nodded. Sadly for you, Naruto. While the Hokage style is an excellent introductory style, I'm afraid it will not prove useful for anything outside of a D-rank mission. Guy was firmly of the opinion that a solid groundwork in taijutsu was a necessity for any ninja, no matter their speciality. While the Hokage style was quite good at its intended tasks, instructing new practitioners in the basics of unarmed combat and promoting basic physical health and fitness, it was not a combat style. He personally believed that non-clan and civilian aspirants should at the very least be encouraged to begin studying a new style no later than the start of their final year. Iruka-sensei is planning on escorting me to the shinobi section of the library after this training thing is over to look for a proper dual Tanto and Kodachi style. Naruto replied with a shrug. I was already planning on looking into finding a better taijutsu style for myself while I was there. Excellent. In that case, our first order of business should be a quick spar. Guy enthused with a bright, sparkling grin on his lips. I am, with no false modesty, the acknowledged taijutsu master of Konohagakure. I'm sure I can offer some insight onto what form of style would be suit you. Simply come at me in whatever way feels natural to you. That way I can judge not only your physical capabilities but your natural combat inclinations. Alright, the Uzumaki returned, grinning sharply, only for it to freeze. An eyebrow began to twitch, as the world grayed out around him. A second later, a blue window popped up. Quest alert. Fight the best, to be the best. Made a guy, the acknowledged taijutsu master offered to spar with you in order to gauge what sort of taijutsu style you may be best suited for. Take this chance to get advice from the best, and fight in a way that suits you. Quest objective. Spar against Made a guy and try to avoid losing too soon. The rewards are not cumulative. Quest reward 1. Last 30 seconds. Plus 500 reputation with Made a guy, basic taijutsu style advice. Quest reward 2. Last 45 seconds. Plus 750 reputation with Made a guy, thorough taijutsu style advice. Quest reward 3. Last 60 seconds. Plus 1000 reputation with Made a guy, youthful taijutsu style advice. Quest failure. Lose before 30 seconds pass. This quest has been auto-accepted. Something deep in Naruto's gut told him that he didn't want to know what youthful taijutsu style advice would contain. Losing before a full minute ended sounded fine to him, provided he could last that long. Then the world suddenly regained its color and started moving again. Ahaha. Now that's the youthful spirit. Young Naruto, Guy guffawed loudly, before addressing the other 3 genin. Hinata, Kiba, Choji. We'll each spar as well so I can get an idea of your respective skill levels. Once Naruto's session is done, I'll call the next one of you over and we can continue working youthfully from there. Does he add youthful to everything he does? Naruto had to wonder as he walked over to stand opposite Guy, allowing the other 3 genin to move away with the silver-haired jonin. Now, we'll keep this simple and straightforward. I'll be purely on the defensive for this match, and feel free to use whatever taijutsu enhancement ninjutsu or technique you have. The taijutsu master instructed, nothing directly offensive mind you, but anything like the Inuzuka's Shikyaku no Jutsu, 4 legs technique, or the Akamichi's Baika no Jutsu, expansion technique, are perfectly permissible. You got it, sensei, Naruto called back, forming 2 sets of hand signs one after the other. Ninpo. Kitsunrisu no Binsho. Ninpo. Usagi no Sokudo. Hey, what gives? Kiba called out. My clan's the only one who uses beast-style nin taijutsu. Wrong again. Naruto called over his shoulder, grinning ferally as energy surged through his body from his newly activated jutsu. He eagerly crouched down, ready to begin. Guy's face instantly hardened into a more serious mien as he took an odd stance, his right hand held diagonally up in front of him, palm towards him, while the other arm was tucked behind his waist. It was the oddest fighting stance that Naruto had ever seen, but if Guy was half as good as the gamer seemed to indicate, then it was probably a lot more impressive than it looked. Kakashi, if you'd kindly referee, Guy said, focusing on Naruto. Oh boy. The silver-haired jonin sighed, but complied nonetheless. Okay, on your marks, start. Without a moment's hesitation, Naruto shot forward, moving faster than he ever had before. He'd been training both of his speed-boosting techniques since his encounter with Bugs Bunny, and they'd both leveled up quick nicely, about 4 levels apiece, but their leveling speed had slowed sharply after that and both were still sitting at about halfway to their next level, level 13 for Kitsunrisu no Binsho, and level 10 for Usagi no Sokudo. Quite fast. Guy noted, his eyes narrowing slightly. He's already moving beyond what a normal genin should be able to manage, mid-chunin, or perhaps even high chunin. What an interesting little pair of jutsu. Naruto began with a feint, starting with what looked like a right straight that Guy quickly moved to block, only to leap upwards at last moment to try and slam a high kick into the jonin's head. Guy easily dodged the sudden blow, stepping back with a casual ease that would have been insulting if it wasn't for his serious expression. Naruto's kick still managed to hit the outside of Guy's arm, which the genin quickly used to springboard into a leap over his head, landing behind him and quickly trying to close in from behind. What the? Kiba was gaping. Sure, he'd lost in their match on moving day, but he'd honestly thought that it was mostly because he hadn't taken the match seriously enough. He could barely keep up with the former class clown's movements now. Hell, he was pretty sure that even his older sister would have had difficulty keeping track of them. Yosh, Naruto-kun is battling most youthfully with Guy-sensei. That came from who you'd expect. Well. Kakashi's eyes smiled as he watched the match progress. Naruto's certainly been putting some serious efforts in, hasn't he? As the match continued, Guy remained purely on the defensive, doing nothing other than blocking or dodging any attacks Naruto managed to launch, only rarely pushing the boy back after blocking or redirecting a strike. Even so, he couldn't help but smile a bit to himself. His movements are focused, swift and aggressive, but he's also been careful not to sacrifice either his flexibility or agility so he can fall back at a moment's notice. This boy might just make a good Goken practitioner with a bit of polish, though it doesn't suit him quite as well as it did Lee. Time to end this, I think. Knocking Naruto back, Guy suddenly burst forward, leaping into the air in a rapid spin. Konoha Senpu, Leaf Whirlwind. With a sudden shout, the taijutsu master unleashed a storm of kicks onto the blonde Jinchuriki, who barely managed to get his defenses up enough that he was only sent flying backwards straight towards Kakashi. The one-eyed Jonin didn't flinch, absently reaching and catching the flying boy by the scruff of his neck before he could impact. You have lost 2037 HP, holy hell. Naruto mentally swore as he tried to recover from his sudden airtime. He just cut my HP in half with just a few kicks. That was well fought, young Naruto, Guy called out, offering him a large, sparkling smile and thumbs up. I shall write out a thorough analysis of what you should look for in a taijutsu style and even a few suggestions that I know are in the library. Quest complete. Fight the best to be the best. You sparred with Maida Guy and impressed him enough to give a thorough breakdown of the type of taijutsu style you would be suited for. Well done on avoiding the influx of youth. Quest reward. Plus 750 reputation with Maida Guy, thorough taijutsu style advice, scroll. So the youth one was a trap after all, Naruto thought. This damn gamer system. Advanced Hokage Taijutsu, has leveled up twice, LV27 LV29. Well, at least he got something out of the experience. Thanks, Guy-sensei. He called back aloud, eye twitching slightly as he watched the man plop down onto the ground, pulling a scroll, ink pot and brush from somewhere, before he began writing with a surprising amount of grace and speed. Well, once Guy finishes with that, he'll call one of you three next, so you'd best be ready. Kakashi offered with a nod. For now, I suppose it's time to start our ninjutsu lessons. How many of you actually know your primary and secondary elements? Naruto was the only one to raise his hand. Let me guess. Primary futon, secondary doden. Kakashi said with a tilt of his head. Yup. Naruto nodded. Well, at least one of you already knows. That's better than the last group. The rest of you, take a piece of this paper and channel a small amount of chakra through it. The silver-haired Jonin instructed, holding up a small bundle of chakra paper squares. If it tears, then you're a futon affinity. If it gets wet, you're a Suiden. If it burns, you're a Kaden. If it crinkles, you're a Raiden. And if it crumbles, you're a Doden. Kiba, as it turns out, was a primary Doden, secondary Kaden. Choji was a primary Doden, secondary Suiden, and Hinata was a primary Suiden, secondary futon. A futon, even as a secondary affinity? That's fairly rare in High no Kuni. For there to be two of you in a single class is fairly remarkable. Kakashi mused as Hinata looked at the remnants of her paper in shock. Most futon affinities in Konoha are tertiary affinities at best. Devo satisfy one of the requirements for Jonin rank, aside from the even rarer primary affinities like Naruto and Asuma. Aren't most Hyuga D Doden primaries? Hinata asked tremulously. Sure, but while your bloodline has an influence on what your affinities will be, it isn't absolute. The Jonin replied bluntly. In a homogeneous clan like the Hyuga, it can be fairly uncommon, but sometimes this happens every generation or so. There's a fancy name for it that med nin and doctors made up for it, but most people call this happening as affinity rebound. Your paper was shredded and soaked, meaning both of your affinities are fairly powerful, which is also common with affinity rebound. You'll have quite a bit more trouble training if you try and learn a Raiden or Kaden technique beyond even what is normal when training with jutsu of an opposing element to your own affinities, but you will also find Suiden and futon jutsu that much easier to learn and manipulate. I'd suggest you focus on refining your natural affinities for now in your ninjutsu training. The The strength of your natural affinities should make learning a few basic techniques for both elements fairly easy. I see, the Hyuga heiress said softly. Kakashi then gave Kiba, Hinata and Choji a different D-rank Doden scroll for them to practice with. Kiba got Doden, Tobi Subute, Earth Style, Flying Throne Stones, while Choji got Doden, Jiroku Gashi, Earth Style, Earth Shore Return. Hinata was given Sweden, Teppodama, Water Style, Liquid Bullets, while Naruto, much to his surprise, got given Futon, Repusho, Wind Style, Gale Palm, a C-rank technique. As Asuma mentioned earlier, you have naturally large chakra reserves. Kakashi explained helpfully when Kiba complained. Not learning to make the best use of them would simply be criminal. I understand that you've already learned quite a few futon techniques, but this one can be quite handy. If you learn to wield it correctly, it can have offensive, defensive, and even supplementary uses. Nodding eagerly, Naruto took the scroll, found a spot to sit, and quickly unrolled it before starting to read. While he couldn't use the absorption system in a place like this, his ability to focus and absorb information had greatly increased since he received the Gamer a year ago, which had greatly increased his ability to learn things the normal way as well. Thus, you have read and understood the contents of the Futon Repusho Jutsu scroll. Checking requirements to learn. Done. You have now learned the jutsu. Futon Repusho no Jutsu. Active, passive, LV1, 0%. The Wind Style Gale Palm technique is, at first glance, fairly weak for a C-class ninjutsu, rarely being strong enough to do more than blow a grown man over in even the hands of a skilled user. However, this technique makes up for this lack in raw power with its impressive versatility. Utilizing this jutsu, the user can create brief bursts of powerful wind that can be manipulated in several ways. The technique, at its most basic, can be used to fire off a sudden gale of wind at a target, knocking them off their feet. The user can also further compress the air before releasing it and use it to either deflect incoming projectiles or augment the speed and power of an ally's thrown weapons. Skilled users can even manipulate the resulting burst of wind to briefly accelerate themselves when they move. Hand signs: snake, ram, boar, horse, bird, clap hands. Chakra cost: Gale version, 30 CP. Compressed wind version, 35 CP. Velocity acceleration version, 40 CP. Gale version. The user uses 5 of the above 6 hand signs before thrusting a hand at their target. This causes only damage equal to the user's int stat, but also deals knockback to the target, with a 10% chance of sending them to the ground and stunning them for 1 second. Compressed wind version. Using all 6 hand signs, the user compresses the air around them and launches it at their target. If the target is incoming thrown weapons, there is a 50% chance to knock them off course. If the target are weapons thrown by you or your allies, this jutsu increases their velocity by 20%, which also increases the damage dealt by them by 10%. Velocity acceleration. After using 5 of the 6 above hand signs, the wind parts before the user slightly as he runs, increasing his speed by 5%. Whoa! Naruto blinked at the information. Kakashi-sensei was right. This technique is like having 3 jutsu in one. Kakashi-sensei, this jutsu would really suit Ten-chan, he said as he closed the scroll. Futon isn't one of her elements, but it really suits her combat style. Oh, what are her elements? Kakashi asked. Primary Kaiten, secondary Raiden. Naruto rattled off. The ninjutsu I know she's learned are Kaiten, Hotarubi and Kaiten, Kakyu. A solid enough foundation, I'll consider it when she rotates over to me. The silver-haired Jonin offered. Now, let's see if you manage to get a handle on the jutsu you've been studying? Okay. Here's the Gale version. Naruto declared and ran through the 5 hand signs. Futon. Repusho. Thrusting one hand out towards Kakashi, a roaring burst of wind erupted from his palm that slammed into the Jonin, knocking him back a step before he quickly recovered. Not bad for a first try. Kakashi offered, absently dusting off his flak jacket. And what about the other 2 forms? Naruto only grinned brightly. Drawing out a couple of shuriken from his holster, He threw them at a tree and used all 6 hand signs this time to send a gale at their backs, making the throwing stars speed into their target with a great deal more force than normal. Then Naruto started running around the training ground using the 3rd version of his newest jutsu to briefly boost his speed. When he came to a halt, a pleasant little window appeared before him. Futon. Repusho has leveled up, LV1 LV2. You have impressed Kakashi with your ability to use all 3 versions of your new jutsu. You gained 500 reputation with Hitaki Kakashi. Well, that is an impressive surprise. It usually takes people a while to get a handle on all 3 forms of the Repushos after they first learn it. Kakashi said with an eye smile. Well done, Naruto. Ehehehe. The gamer grinned and rubbed the back of his head. Why are we even bothering with this stuff? Kiba grumbled from where he was hunched over his own scroll. We have our clan jutsu. Meaning any enemy smart enough to recognize your clan will likely have at least a general idea of your combat style and probably some idea of what kind of jutsu you'll use. Kakashi pointed out. Knowing a few jutsu outside your clan's techniques is a fairly basic trump card that most smart ninja appreciate. Even Shikamaru is learning a Kaiden jutsu. Do you want to be outdone by him? Hell no. The Inuzuka heir shouted back before redoubling his efforts to practice his new jutsu. Wow, he's easy to trick. Naruto deadpanned to himself. When it came time for him to be switched around to Kurenai, Naruto asked her about his new Tanto jutsu, Nisan Togen Kyo, and even showed her the scroll for it. A genjutsu that isn't a genjutsu. The genjutsu mistress mused thoughtfully as she browsed through the scroll. Your difficulties with chakra control means that most conventional forms of genjutsu won't work for you, Naruto. I would say though, that this would require you being at least passably skilled in a formal Nito Ryu Tanto style before it could be learned. Moreover, it would work best with one that emphasizes speed and skill over raw strength. Thanks, Kurenai-sensei. Naruto said cheerfully. He'd known that he needed a formal style to learn it, but the additional advice on what kind of style to get was useful. After the joint training session, streets of Konoha, outside the Konoha library. This is a pretty big place, Naruto remarked as he looked up at the Konohagakure Public Library. The building was indeed quite large, with the name laid out in bronze characters above the door. Trust me, the sub-level Weon is located is even bigger, Iruka offered. Follow me. The Chunin sensei led Naruto into the building, past the front desk and through what seemed like half a forest's worth of scrolls and books to a more guarded entrance that had a pair of regular Chunin on guard outside of it. Iruka passed a scroll to one of them, who read it, glanced at Naruto and then waved to two in. What was that about? Naruto asked as they descended down a narrow spiral staircase. Normally, rookie genin, that means any genin without at least a full year of service, aren't allowed access into the shinobi section without their Jonin sensei. Iruka explained. That scroll was a directive from the Hokage allowing me to act in Asuma-san's stead for this afternoon. He would have been the one to come with you today, but Hokage-sama received word a few days ago that he would be needed for the next 2 days starting after the first joint training session of your genin platoon today. It's okay, Iruka-sensei. I know you won't steer me wrong, Naruto reassured his old sensei. Glad to hear it. Iruka laughed. And now, we're here, as they passed through a stone archway at the base of the stairway. Stepping in, Naruto gasped in awe at the sheer size of the space within, easily 2 or 3 times wider than the building above them. I did warn you. Iruka chuckled good-naturedly as he gestured at the room. The entire place was seemingly lined with octagonal stone blocks, each a little bit under a foot in diameter and illuminated by hundreds of lanterns hanging down from the ceiling. It was full to the brim with shelves for scrolls, instruction books and even a few weapons on display. Oddly enough, the stone blocks seemed to have been painted a different color in different sections of the room. Welcome to the Konoha Shinobi Open Library, Naruto. Iruka informed his quietly. As a genin, you're entitled to check out up to 3 books or scrolls at a time, but are only permitted to access the green and blue sections. The red and yellow require at least Chunin ranking to enter, while the purple section is restricted to only full Jonin. Naruto scanned the areas Iruka mentioned. The green and blue stoned areas were the smallest sections of the library, while the red and yellow sections were the largest. The purple area was as large as the blue and green areas combined. "Wow," was all he said. "So Naruto, what exactly are we looking for exactly?" Iruka asked. "I know you need a Tanto style and a Kodachi style, but do you have any idea what your third scroll should be?" Naruto had to pause and think for a moment. He had two other things that he needed to look for. A Sojutsu, Bojutsu style to use with his new collapsible spear and a new Taijutsu style. It took him only a moment to decide. He was still getting used to his new weapon and wanted to build a better understanding of it before he started looking for a style for it. Plus he had the scroll from Gai-sensei that he didn't want to let go to waste. "I also need to get a new Taijutsu style. Now that I'm a full genin, the Hokage style that I learned in the academy isn't holding up so well," Naruto answered. "That's probably a good idea." The academy instructor agreed. "So let's start with the Tanto. The first requirement is that it should be one that can switch between 1 and 2 Tanto depending on the situation. Are there any other things you'd like to narrow it down by?" Kurenai-sensei suggested one that focuses less on raw strength and more on speed and skill. The blonde genin replied, "If it's one that can make use of the chakra nagashi no jutsu, especially futon and doton, that would probably be even better." That rules out the Konoha Tanto Nitoryu, Leaf Short Sword 2 sword style, for a start. Iruka mused. "That focuses on balance over most things, with a slight emphasis on speed. Let me see here." Walking over to the desk, Iruka consulted with the librarian behind the counter for a minute or two, before coming back with 3 slips of green paper, and 2 sheets of blue paper, each with a series of letters and numbers on them. Iruka then led Naruto around to pick up books and scrolls from sections in the green and blue areas before leading him to a table. As soon as he sat down, the world bleached gray and Naruto sighed again. As expected, here was the gamer butting in again. "Tanto style selection. Based on the criteria you gave him, and with the help of the on-duty librarian, Amino Iruka has selected 5 Nitoryu Tanto styles that may be suitable for you. Kindly select one of the 5 below after reviewing their description and comparing their statistics and special features. Be warned. Once chosen you cannot select another." 1. Low Genin style. Nissen Ryu. The twin line style is a basic style donated to Konohagakure by the Uchiha clan approximately 50 years ago, when they obtained it after a series of conflicts with Hayashi no Kuni, Land of Woods. While fairly basic, the style is easy to learn and has some utility with various forms of the chakra nagashi no jutsu. Ease of learning. 4/5 speed, 3/5 attack power, 3/5. Skill required. 2/5 special characteristics, none. Select this style. N2, Low Genin style. Senba Ryu. First chapter. The Thousand Feathers style is a defensive Tanto style which places emphasis on deflecting projectiles from enemy shinobi. It is known for being divided into 3 chapters, for Genin, Chunin and Jonin level respectively. While a truly great style for defending against many forms of ranged attacks, it lacks many offensive techniques and isn't compatible with the chakra nagashi no jutsu. Ease of learning. 4/5 speed, 4/5 attack power, 2/5. Skill required. 2.5 special characteristics. Anti-projectile, shield style. Select this style. N3, Low Genin style. Renka Mankai Ryu. Wild Flowers in Full Bloom style is a style taken from the now destroyed Hakuren village, once a mortal enemy of the Nadeshiko village. It is an unusual style that focuses primarily on using a single Tanto in combination with shuriken as well as more traditional Nitoryu sword skills. The strongest technique was known as Hakuren no Mai, Dance of the White Storm, and was passed down from leader to leader of the Hakuren village, along with the advanced techniques of the style. It is believed to have been lost during the destruction of the village. As such, this is an incomplete style. Ease of learning. 3.5 speed, 3/5 attack power, 4/5. Skill required. 4/5 special characteristics. Incomplete, sword and shadow sword. Select this style. N4, High Genin style. Fuko no Sume Ryu. A style from Kei's no Kuni originally, and gained by Konoha through its alliance with Sunagakure, The Claws of the Wind Tiger style is a style that focuses heavily on using the Futon Chakra Nagashi no Jutsu in combination with chakra metal weapons. Difficult to both learn and master, it is nonetheless a highly effective style that can quickly overwhelm and cut down many opponents. The style's main weakness lies in its restrictive nature, only able to truly flourish when used in combination with Futon Chakra flow. Ease of learning. 3/5 speed, 4/5 attack power, 3.55. Skill required. 4/5 special characteristics. Elemental restriction. Futon, war style, elemental compatibility. Select this style. N5, high genin style. Rusui Ryu. The flowing water style is one that focuses on controlling the flow of combat, manipulating and controlling the movements and attacks of the enemy towards the practitioner's goal, whether that be death, capture or something else. A highly technical style, its reliance on technical skill over physical ability marks it as a borderline Chunin ranked style. Ease of learning. 2/5 speed, 2.55 attack power, 3/5. Skill required. 5/5 special characteristics. Battle flow manipulation, technical style, difficult to learn and use. Select this style. N. Blinking at the information provided, Naruto let out a sigh. Well, at least it's letting me compare stats, right? The young Uzumaki took in everything he could about the styles. The first to be eliminated was the first one listed, Nissan Ryu. Its only real benefit was that it was easy to learn, otherwise the style offered nothing really special in comparison to the other styles being offered. After going through the remaining 4 styles again, he reluctantly decided to eliminate the Ranka Mankai Ryu. While the style itself sounded pretty cool with its inclusion of shuriken techniques in addition to normal Tanto training, the fact that it was missing its more advanced kata and final techniques was simply too much of a negative for Naruto to ignore. Next to be eliminated was the Rusui Ryu. While the battle flow manipulation certainly sounded interesting, Naruto knew himself well enough to know that he simply wasn't built for a purely technical style, which would discard a lot of the work he'd put in on bolstering his physical abilities. Finally, he eliminated the Senba Ryu. While the idea of a defensive style was certainly intriguing, it simply wasn't what he was looking for in regards to his Tanto style. This left Fuko no Sume Ryu. It was the best of the 5 options, and fit into the requirements for his Nissan Togen Kyo technique as well. He had to wonder if there were other styles that had the same name, because Claws of the Wind Tiger sounded like a truly awesome name for a ninjutsu technique in addition to being a pretty badass style name. He selected Y for the Fuko no Sume Ryu, and then hit Y again when asked to confirm if he was certain about his choice. The color of the world came flashing back to him, and he mentally throttled his power as he made a big show of carefully considering each and every one of the styles, again, before again selecting Fuko no Sume Ryu. I thought that this would be the one you'd choose. Iruka nodded. Most styles deal with only 1 or 2 elements if they deal with them at all, so I made sure to select one with your primary affinity. There were other tiger styles in the same vein, like Kako no Kiba, Fangs of the Flame Tiger. But none of them suited you, and unfortunately there wasn't a similar style using Doden. Ah well. This'll suit me fine. Naruto shrugged. He was a bit disappointed that he couldn't use both Doden and Futon with the same style, but decided it didn't really matter in the end. Hopefully he could use his Doden affinity with one of his other weapons. Now, what about your Kodachi style? Iruka asked after putting away the rejected Tanto styles. That's a tough one. Have you heard about my Kodachi from Tenten's dad? Naruto asked. Only that it's special, and a chakra weapon, Iruka confessed. It's a really complicated weapon that can transform its blade and stuff. It's called Kogetsu Kyushiki, and I'm really looking forward to being able to wield it. The Uzumaki grinned. But I dunno what style would suit it. Something using Doden wouldn't work well with something that flexible, and a futon style would probably get in the way of operating some of the tools. I think your best bet for now would be the Konoha Kodachi Ryu, Iruka said thoughtfully. While it lacks any particular strong specialities, it is a solid, versatile style with a slight emphasis on speed. If your Kodachi is going to be as unique as you expect it to be, then the Konoha Kodachi Ryu would serve as a good base for developing a style around using it. Naruto considered that for a moment, before nodding his head in agreement. Sounds good. Guess that just leaves a new taijutsu style. Oh, that reminds me, Guy-sensei gave me this after we had a short spar during the joint training. It should have some details on the kind of style I should go with. He added, pulling the thorough taijutsu style advice scroll Guy had given him out of his belt pouch. The Chunin took the scroll and unrolled it, giving it a quick examination. Guy-san is as thorough as always when it comes to taijutsu training. He offered as he noted the detail on the message. Well, it shouldn't take long to find the scroll on the styles he's proposed. You stay here and take a closer look at your Tanto style while I go grab the scroll and one for the Konoha Kodachi Ryu. With that, the scarred Chunin quickly turned and headed back to the stacks. Shrugging, Naruto did as he was told. He couldn't absorb the scroll here anyway, so he may as well get an idea for what the style was like. Unlike with the basic jutsu scrolls, a weapon or taijutsu style scroll was a lot longer and more involved, so he couldn't read the whole scroll in such a short amount of time. He was so engrossed in his reading that Iruka had to tap him on the shoulder when he got back about 5 minutes later. "Oh, back already?" Naruto said, looking up at his old sensei. "Yeah, and I think I found a style that you'll like." Iruka nodded, and placed a scroll on the desk. It was fairly large and, despite looking quite old, was rather ornate, with metal handles carved into the shape of tiger heads. It's called Randora Ryu, Storm Tiger style. And it's one of the styles Guy-san suggested that I thought would suit you best. It's fast, aggressive, maneuverable and works well with physical enhancement ninjutsu. Sounds perfect. Naruto was grinning as he picked up the scroll. Just to warn you though, it's not an easy style to learn. The Chunin offered fairly. While not quite as bad as Guy-san's Goken style, it is still an incredibly strenuous style to learn. You're going to have to sweat and strain to learn this one, Naruto, but I agree with Guy-san that you have the ability to make incredible use of it. I won't let you down, Iruka-sensei. Naruto grinned up at the first adult aside from the old man who'd actually believed in him. Gathering the 2 chosen scrolls of the desk, as well as accepting the plain-looking scroll containing the Konoha Kodachi Ryu that Iruka had brought along with the Randora Ryu scroll, he quickly started following Iruka toward the front desk. The librarian, a slightly older-looking woman with graying hair, dressed in a Chunin vest, took a quick note of the 3 scrolls he was checking out, as well as accepting a small scroll from Iruka, before adding a quick addition to the note. Considering this is a reward from the Hokage, you're being allowed to check these 3 out indefinitely this time. She explained as she finished taking noting everything down. After they're returned, any further checkouts will need to be either renewed or returned within 1 month. There is 100 ryo per week overdue fee if they're not, and any significant damage will also come with a fine and a possible restriction of privileges if it happens repeatedly. Understood. Naruto nodded obediently. Iruka treated Naruto to Ichiraku ramen again on the way home before the 2 said their farewells in front of the Amikage apartments, with the Chunin telling Naruto to study his new styles hard. Zipping up to his apartment, he had to get a hold of the Shunshin no Jutsu at some point. Naruto grinned like a lunatic as he locked himself in for the night and headed to his living room. "Okay, time to upgrade my arm styles," he muttered excitedly, "Kodachi first." He pulled out the Konoha Kodachi Ryu scroll and grinned as the expected pop-up appeared. "You have acquired the Konoha Kodachi Ryu scroll. Do you wish to learn this Kodachi style? Warning. Learning this style will upgrade your self-taught Kodachi Kenjutsu style and it will not be reversible. Are you sure you wish to do this?" Hell yes," Naruto muttered and hit Y, doing so again when he was asked to confirm his choice. The scroll dissolved into blue motes of light which were absorbed into his body almost immediately. "Congratulations! You have upgraded your self-taught Kodachi Kenjutsu into Konoha Kodachi Ryu. Due to the former style being maxed out, it starts at level 2. Konoha Kodachi Ryu, passive, LV2, 0%. The Leaf Kodachi style, like all other forms of Konoha Ryu Kenjutsu, was originally Ju clan's own sword styles, though the styles were simplified in order to make it easier for most shinobi to learn. Over the centuries since they were first developed, the various forms of Konoha Ryu have developed and evolved into their own styles, each with a proud, reliable history of service. While not excelling in any particular area, save for a slight focus on attack speed, the Konoha Kodachi Ryu also lacks any form of distinct weakness that can often be found with more specialized styles. Advanced practitioners can advance to the more dangerous Uruk Konoha Kodachi Ryu, Reverse Leaf Kodachi style, which is primarily used by the Anbu forces. Increases damage dealt by Kodachi-type weapons by 14. Increases attack speed of Kodachi-type weapons by 16. Increases STR while wielding a Kodachi-type weapon by 12. Increases Dex while wielding a Kodachi-type weapon by 12. As the level of this style increases, various Kodachi jutsu may be unlocked depending on the user's luck. Huh. That's pretty good. Naruto blinked. His self-taught version had capped out at 10 across the board. Okay, now for the Tanto version. You have acquired the Fuko no Sume Ryu scroll. Do you wish to learn this Tanto style? Warning. Learning this style will upgrade your self-taught Nito Ryu Tanto Kenjutsu style and it will not be reversible. Are you sure you wish to do this? Why, N again confirming twice that he did indeed want to do this. Naruto watched as the scroll was absorbed into his chest. He was really glad that the gamer gave him an exact copy of any scroll or book that he absorbed. Otherwise he'd have needed to learn these styles the old-fashioned way. Congratulations! You have upgraded your self-taught Nito Ryu Tanto Kenjutsu into Fuko no Sume Ryu. Due to the former style being maxed out, it starts on level 2. Fuko no Sume Ryu, passive, LV2, 0%. The Claws of the Wind Tiger style was developed by a wandering tribe of shinobi in Kase no Kuni. Unlike most, they dwelt in one of the few mountainous areas possessing lush vegetation and plentiful water in that barren and desolate land. This Tanto style was developed after the son of the tribe's chieftain was almost killed by a white and black striped tiger while hunting. Specializing in swift hit-and-run tactics combined with the use of the Futon Chakra Nagashi Jutsu to give it a fair amount of striking power, it is difficult and arduous to master, but the results are well worth it. The tribe which created this style were wiped out during the Warring Clans period by invaders from Iwa no Kuni, with only this style and a handful of other jutsu surviving them. Increases damage dealt with Tanto-type weapons by 12. Increases attack speed with Tanto-type weapons by 16. Increases effectiveness of the Futon Chakra Nagashi Jutsu, when used in combination with Tanto-type weapons by 5. Increases STR when wielding Tanto-type weapons by 12. Increases Dex when wielding Tanto-type weapons by 12. Increases the effectiveness of evasion-type skills by 5 while wielding Tanto-type weapons. As the level of this style increases, various Tanto and Chakra Nagashi Jutsu may be unlocked depending on the user's luck. Again, it was a huge jump from his crummy, self-taught style. As he'd learned the style as a whole, including any special attacks and sword techniques they might have had, it seemed he might earn them when his overall level and/or his level with the respective styles reached a certain point. The only one he didn't learn right away was Randora Ryu, because he wouldn't get the full benefits of learning it after the Hokage style until he reached the maximum level with it. Each tier of the Hokage style, basic, intermediate, and advanced, consisted of 10 levels each, with the name changing every time you upgraded it. Looking at his Tanto and Kodachi styles, they had each gained a free level because the preceding style had been maxed out before the upgrade. If taijutsu styles worked anything like weapon styles, maybe he'd get one free level per 10 full levels of the Hokage style he had mastered. It was worth a try, at least, and there was only one level to go before he maxed it out, so he wouldn't be wasting much time with it. Sakura-chan and Ino should have learned some ninjutsu from Kakashi-sensei today, and hopefully learned how to fight a bit from Gai-sensei, so Asuma-sensei'll probably make me take them into Training Ground 13 soon. The Uzumaki mused aloud. I hope they know what they're getting themselves into. In their apartments, Ino and Sakura shivered for some reason, a sense of foreboding coming over them.